And all right, I think we're live. Yes, we are. We're live. How's it going? Looks like we have a few people tuning in for the Bolt Thrower Deep Dive. And I originally called this Realm of Completist, Slaves of Amassment. But I thought that the Slaves of Amassment just didn't really make sense because I was thinking like, I must own everything, but I didn't know if amassment was a real word or whatever. But yeah, anyways, welcome to the Bolt Thrower Realm of Completist Deep Dive. I'm happy to see that some people tuned in, and with us we have Tom from Cine Arcadia Productions and Wilson from Random Vinyl Records. How you guys doing?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, all right. Tom is there. Got the thumbs up from him. Tom, gotta say that I really appreciated your post earlier promoting the show and that you warned everyone that don't be a poser. You'll be, if you miss out on this deep dive, you will be a poser, and it was a poser with a U, which I think is pretty serious. What are your thoughts on posers with a U?
Well, anybody who spells it without the U, I consider a poser first and foremost, because they're a spelling poser, and they need to be castigated and removed from metal circles.
I couldn't agree more. Like my feelings about posers with a U are the same way I feel about Chris's with a K. Like I don't trust them. I would never, if I had a daughter and she brought home a Chris with a K, I'd want to sit down and have a talk with her, be like, okay, he's not the right one, and but yeah, I mean, just posers in general. I see them where I live. I look out through my blinds and I, see posers walking by. But there is the poser with the U, and then there is the standard poser too. So yeah, good call out. I appreciate the thought and all that. Wilson, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. I just got back from the Ottawa Record Fair, so I managed to grab some goodies.
Yeah.
Some vintage records. So I'm pretty happy with some of the purchases I made.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you going to show us any of those or tell us about them?
Sure. Okay, I can show them briefly. Here's one of my favorite ones. This one right here. Slayer, also known as San Antonio Slayer. Prepare to Die. This is where before they changed their name to SA Slayer because
Wow.
Yeah. Released in 1983, so this is the early speed metal release. And it also has Dave McClain right here, the drummer who would later drum for Machine Head and Sacred Reich.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
okay. All right. SA Slayer. I completely forgot about that. I haven't seen that name in ages.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of background about SA Slayer.
Well, SA Slayer, they're located in San Antonio, and the fact is that they're like the only Slayer in America that they know of. But then suddenly, a certain band of the same name appeared in Los Angeles, and then there's like a bit of a rivalry between the two Slayers. So it's like an ultimate showdown between the Slayer LA versus the Slayer of San Antonio, and legend goes that they actually, at some point, they actually went to, both of them actually played together in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And though there's a bit of a rivalry, so if there's like a big crowd saying they love the Slayer, then they change their name. So, for example, if Slayer Slayer from Los Angeles lost, they'll become Slayer LA. Well, if the other lose, they'll just have to rename to SA Slayer. So
yeah.
As you can see, I think we know where the history goes from there.
Right.
And this may have come up in the Solitude Eternus show or it was afterwards. But John Perez of Solitude Eternus was actually at that show, the one show with Slayer and SA Slayer played together.
Oh wow!
And he said it was like one of the best concerts he's ever seen. Because it was in Texas somewhere.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I remember reading about SA Slayer like ages ago, but I've just been out of the loop on whatever that gossip was, or it was. I think maybe didn't Nuclear War Now reissue some of their stuff at some point, or I remember I think maybe it was Nuclear War Now. Maybe they reissued some SA Slayer stuff like years ago.
I don't remember. All I know that the SA Slayer stuff is being reissued for High Roller Records recently.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So we got a few people in the chat here. Andre, good to see you. And my man Baloney. Baloney Anzalone. Good to see you, Baloney. Glad you tuned in. And so what we're going to do with the Bolt Thrower deep dive, I think a good thing to kind of go over would be to kind of just talk about maybe our history with the band first, kind of just how we were introduced to Bolt Thrower, initial impressions of the band, kind of just our history with the band, really. And I think that'd be a good place to start. Tom, how about you?
Yeah, it was, because this came out, so basically 1994 is when I really started to get into death metal. And I started with this album, For Victory.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I was reading magazines and even on the internet at that point, and people said, and this album had just come out, and they were just like rave reviews, like this band is the shit, etc. And then I actually bought this. This was like had just come out maybe a couple of weeks prior, and I bought this at Best Buy with Carcass Heartwork, because that was another band that everyone was saying to check out. And that was kind of like that day I kind of became a death metal fan. I probably heard Morbid Angel, and Deicide maybe. And that kind of took me on the Bolt Thrower path.
Mm-hmm.
So
what when you heard Bolt Thrower for the first time, what was your initial impression of them as a band? Just like from the imagery that they used, the themes that they talked about, just the content, the lyrics, musically, what did you see them as being something different than your average run of the mill death band? Like what were your initial thoughts when you first discovered Bolt Thrower?
I guess initially I thought it was super heavy with the production, and geez,
I'm like
I'm trying to think of like it was probably was like, well, this is so heavy, because I had not heard too many death metal things, but just generally, just amazing riffs after amazing riff,
right?
And I think it's a band that any metal fan, even if you're not a death metal fan, I think you can get into.
Yeah,
more so than almost any other death metal band that still you can call death metal. It can be kind of a gateway, and then and just great songwriting in terms of just the flow of the songs, not being too long. They know when to change up the tempos. And one thing I was just thinking of the other day is lyrically, they're more about kind of evoking war from kind of all sides and different angles.
Mm-hmm.
even though they came up from the crust background, which was decidedly, anti-war, they kind of went in the direction of, like, you would hear like Iron Maiden, the Trooper, or some other metal songs, especially Iron Maiden, where the lyrics are more evocative and sort of storytelling,
right? Yeah,
rather than the kind of anti-war kind of sentiment. So
yeah, and their albums too. Yeah, everything, the theme throughout every album really is on war, but the songs don't veer away from that at all. Like each album is sort of like a story, really. It's and then even then, some of the songs from some albums are linked to another song in a later album. We'll kind of just touch on that a little bit later on, but yeah, that's one thing. As it was difficult to really kind of recognize Bolt Thrower as being a death metal band because they weren't gory at all. Like, they didn't have guts oozing out of someone's head, and they didn't have songs about mutilated corpses or anything, but they were still lumped into that death metal genre. But even their music had a different sound to it. It's a Bolt Thrower song. A Bolt Thrower song when you hear it. There's a definite distinct sound for, when they're really fast, or, their breakdowns, like the guitar harmonies and the blast beats and everything. There's a distinct Bolt Thrower sound. That I think really they're one of the most unique bands really for that era. And Wilson, how about you? What's your experience with Bolt Thrower?
Well, so I think I was trying to remember how I discovered Bolt Thrower. I think it's one of those times where I actually randomly downloaded some MP3s through Napster back in 2000, 2001 era. So my first song that I listened to was a live track of Dying Creed. And I thought, this sounds good. And then I tried to find some other albums, and I found Mercenary by Bolt Thrower. It's like, okay, sounds kind of okay. We'll discuss a bit more about that album a bit later. And then that was back in mid to late, around the fall of 2001. And then suddenly I did realize they actually they released this one, Honor-Valor-Pride. So this is my first Bolt Thrower. Actually, one of the first few death metal albums I ever purchased.
Okay.
One of those right here. So my initial impression was like, this sounds interesting. Dying Creed, okay. So I looked at a bit of the lyrics, look at the song titles. This song's about war. It's not about gore and guts, which for me back then, it kind of turned me off back then. So I didn't care for all that. I was more into like the social commentary sort of stuff, maybe. But when I looked at the lyrics, it's like, wow, they're looked at war in a different way.
Right.
So I looked, so then I decided, I'll give this guys a deeper listen. So later on, I checked out the Fourth Crusade and a sort of other tracks for Victory. I really enjoyed it so much, and then further down the line, because I tend to go in different directions when I discover new music, especially from Napster and other MP3 sharing programs back in the day. Like, I don't use LimeWire. That's the thing. I actually do not use that very much at all. So, and then it's like, oh my god, I just realized I need to buy them. So much later down the road, I decided to buy the albums with my own money. For a long time I've been broke, or I just never find copies of it online, or more like in stores, I would say.
Yeah. For me, my high school years were the early to mid 90s, and during that time, I'm ashamed to admit this, but I was a latecomer to Bolt Thrower because in 94, 95 I was more into industrial. And there just wasn't really a lot of death metal that really, stuck to me, just because I just thought, like, well, Ministry just sounds so much more extreme, and stuff like that. I did the first Bolt Thrower album that I got was Realm of Chaos, and I want to say this is probably around 98 or so. Would have been right around the time, the early days when file sharing was just the Wild West. Maybe it was early Napster or LimeWire or Kazaa or whatever, but just back in those days when you were bulk downloading over a dial-out modem, and just bulk downloading a ton of stuff, and then I got Realm of Chaos, and I listened to that, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely good shit, absolutely. And yeah, so I think I would say late 90s is when I started to accept Bolt Thrower into my life. And yeah, it's good stuff. Definitely a unique band. Their albums, there's not a dud in there. Like every album is solid. It's I feel like even the most mediocre Bolt Thrower album would be a top tier release by most other bands. Like it's some of their albums have moments when they drag a little bit, but every Bolt Thrower album is just solid from start to finish. It's when preparing for this deep dive, I could think of like 5 albums that on any given day could be my number one. I feel like after the end tonight, when I declare what my number one is, then tomorrow I'll just have like this regret of, like something where a hot shower or something, kind of like how can I tell everyone that was my number one when, but yeah, it's a good album, and I feel like a deep dive is long overdue for them.
I will say, like, I've always known my number one has never shifted.
Yeah,
basically. And I'm with you on 7 of 8 albums. I think 7 of 8 are great.
Yeah,
and then 1 isn't, and we'll see which one that is.
I know what my one is. That's well, my number one has shifted, but my number 2 is where the list gets really long. But then yeah, there is that one that's not so good that we'll out ourselves about that one later on. But all right, cool. Have you guys ever gotten a chance to see Bolt Thrower live?
No, I wish.
Oh, okay. All right. Not bragging or anything. I saw like the shirts behind me. I saw them play Maryland Death Fest in 2009. They headlined 2 nights. I remember there was a Friday night when they were a headliner. Incredible. But then the Saturday night headliner, whoever that was supposed to be, couldn't get into the country because of visa issues. So then Bolt Thrower they headlined on Saturday night as well. And they did, from what I remember, just like an entirely different set, on both nights, which was pretty awesome. And then I also have this other shirt right behind me right here. So those 2 shirts were the ones that I bought in 2009. This is the Maryland Death Fest from 2013, and I forgot that they also played that they played this Death Fest as well in 2013. So I probably saw them 3 times, but I forgot about the 3rd time. So I guess that's a good problem to have, like, oh, I've just seen Bolt Thrower so many times, it's just all a blur. It's not many people in the States can really kind of brag about that too much, but incredible live. Absolutely. All right, awesome. So I think what we'll do is, before we get into the deep dive of the albums, we'll do like an honorable mention. Anything, singles or, anything like that you guys, if there's anything that you want to bring up. I know that one thing that I have that I always liked is I'm a big fan of John Peel sessions, and I have a collection of records that are, Peel sessions recordings for different bands. Unfortunately for Bolt Thrower, all I have is this 3 CD comp called Grind Madness at the BBC. Ah, okay, you have the same one. So this is a really cool comp. It's all John Peel sessions for Napalm Death, Extreme Noise Terror, Carcass, Bolt Thrower, Godflesh, Unseen Terror, Heresy.
In Intense Degree, don't forget those guys.
Intense Degree, yeah. And the Bolt Thrower stuff that's on here is, there are 3 official Peel sessions releases, and
yes.
let me bring this one up right here. So what we have right here now, the first 4 songs are with the original vocalist, and these are the first Peel session recordings that they did in 1988.
So that's Alan West, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Alan West. Right. Yeah, he was the vocalist for these 4 songs, and then the next 4 songs are from 1990, I believe. And this is with everything after that's with Carl on vocals. And then the last 4 songs are, no, you know what it is I think that these are 88, these are 89, and then these are 1990.
According to the notes I was finding, the first Peel session was recorded on January 3rd of 1988. The second set was November 6th, 1988. And the third Peel session, which is the War Master era, it was on July 22nd, 1990, according to my notes.
Okay. All right. Cool. One thing I could say is that the Peel sessions, the songs that are on here that are on In Battle There Is No Law, I prefer these songs over the album versions. I like the recording better. I just think that they just sound better. And also some of these songs too, they're faster than the studio versions. I was just listening to the Peel sessions again today, and I was like, I stopped for a moment because I was like washing dishes or whatever, and I was like, wow, that's fast. Not only is it fast, but it's like, in a way, it kind of reminds me of what early war metal sounded like back in the day, of just that style of drumming that was just like really fast and really good stuff. Eternal War sounds a lot faster in the Peel sessions than it does in the album version. Afterlife is a lot faster. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the Peel sessions, and I still consider these to be part of the discography. And all right, let me see if I got this here. So I'm figuring out. All right, what? Oh wow, that one's sealed.
Yeah, I got the sealed copy of the Peel session. Compilation by Strange Fruit. It was manufactured and distributed by Dutch East India Trading right here. So you have the photo, official band photo, and also got the Hardcore Holocaust 87-88 sessions, which includes 2 tracks from both from the first session. And I also got the second Hardcore Holocaust, which includes the 3rd track from the same session. I also have the LP at the second, but I haven't gone around to get that. So, Yeah, and as you mentioned, you did mention about this one. Unfortunately, this album, this compilation rather, suffered severely with severe brick walling, so it's hugely digitally compressed. I did a comparison between that and the tracks that was on these, and this. Yeah, this one sounds terrible. It's bad.
Right.
It's terrible. It's great compilation, but man, I don't know what Eric was thinking to digitally compress it. They should have redone it. I would have gone to Eric headquarters and tell Digby to redo this shit.
Well, I would say that Eric doesn't have the best reputation for their reissues, but I like their FDR reissues. I think that those are the only upside to their reissues. Everything else pretty much sucks.
I agree. Some of the sound quality in the FDR ones are really good, vinyl and CD.
Yeah, they are, and I have a few different pressings that I'll show a little bit, and pretty much when I've AB'd like maybe a 90s reissue to something and then to the modern FDR reissue, the FDRs always just sound more balanced and just have just a better sound than, especially the stuff from the 90s when it was all just really brick walled. Now, Wilson, do you know that One Peel Sessions is that the gold CD version? Do you know the one you have that's sealed?
I don't know. I haven't opened it, so I can't really say if it's gold color, but it suggests I bought this from I believe might be an American pressing, I think.
Yeah.
These copies are hard to come by. I actually got it for pretty cheap through eBay. This is new old stock stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like years ago. So I was able to acquire this one, so I'm pretty happy with this.
That's cool. That's awesome. All right, cool. So honorable mentions. We went over the Peel Sessions. Anything else?
This is the only thing I have, and I just recently got this. Who Dares Wins, and this is, I guess, the reissue where I will say this has always been my favorite band photo. I think there was a thing on them in Pit Magazine, and I think they used this photo, if I'm remembering correctly.
Right.
And yeah, and so I've already, some of the just some of the B-side tracks are on here that are actually really good. The Destructive Infinity, which is on my copy of War Master, which is a CD bonus, and Laments and Overlord. So like and then weirdly the CD, one of the songs wouldn't play, but I ripped the CD and was able to play it today finally.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but there are some really good B-sides on here that people should check out.
Prophet of Hatred, which is the extra song on the CD of War Master. Is that the one?
I think Destructive Infinity is Prophet of Hatred, the bonus on Realm of Chaos.
Let's see here. Okay, the extra one is Destructive Infinity is the extra track on War Master.
Yeah, and I always had that on CD. I never knew that until this deep dive that was a bonus track. I just thought it was a track.
Yeah, it's a CD only bonus track.
Yeah. So to me, it was always part of War Master because I never knew any other way of listening to it.
Yeah, and then Prophet of Hatred is the CD bonus track for Realm of Chaos.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Realm of Chaos live song is taken from a soundboard recording that the band had.
It's taken from this one, Spearhead.
Yeah.
The CD EP edition.
Right. Yeah. And then on the Spearhead EP, Crown of Life, Dying Creed, Lament, World Eater 91, and Overlord. Two of those are the bonus tracks on the Japanese issue of For Victory. let's see here.
Oh, whoops! I'm sorry. Yeah, the Realm of Chaos Live is actually on the Cenotaph EP. Sorry, that's my fault.
Okay, all right. So yeah, let's. Who dares wins? Here we go. Tracks 1 through 4 from the Cenotaph EP. 5 through 8 are the Spearhead EP. 9 and 10 are the bonus tracks from For Victory. And then one song I don't like is World Eater 91. I'm not a fan of that mix. I could do without that.
Yeah, like I don't really care about the alternate versions. I think they're kind of pointless, but
yeah. Hated it. Okay. So, all right. Okay, cool. Well, let's see here. All right. So, honorable mentions. Here's another one. This isn't in any way a Bolt Thrower cover, but it's this Japanese hardcore band from the 90s called Bolt Steen. I just like the fact that they name themselves after Bolt Thrower, but then also have like that, like Jewish lawyer sound to their name, or like Harvey Boltstein or something.
I have to check that out. But that Boltstein evokes like Frankenstein's monster with the bolts in his neck to me.
Okay, right.
Maybe that's where there's usually a lot of Japanese hardcore bands. There's like the Google Translate going on, where some of the titles and names are kind of weird, and that's just because of the translation.
Yeah. If anything, in Germany it would have called the Boltstone. It probably would work. Boltstone, I guess, as a band name. Yeah, maybe it probably works.
But I have to check that out. I never heard of that.
Yeah, they were kind of like Gizm type of Japanese hardcore. And then another one that I have here, this is a split 7-inch between Ilsa and Seven Sisters of Sleep. And on this one, one band does they cover Messiah from Hellhammer, and then Ilsa covers the Fourth Crusade from Bolt Thrower. I like it, but it's definitely I like Ilsa. It's interesting hearing a Bolt Thrower song, but with their kind of like style of just like sludgy death doom. Good stuff, but it's definitely trying to cover Bolt Thrower songs. It's one of those things. Like, I've never heard a band cover a Bolt Thrower song that I just thought was awesome, just because Bolt Thrower does it best themselves,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but the one thing that I found I discovered a while ago was there's a singer doing an a cappella version of World Eater. Her name is The Little Death. She does these acoustic, like a cappella cover songs of like death metal, like Cannibal Corpse songs and such. And it's actually quite interesting. So you hear her doing the melodic, like R&B style a cappella vocals to the lyrics of World Eater. So it's actually she has a really good voice, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm pretty sure the vast majority of the metal in the vinyl community and beyond that will probably be screaming blood and murder if they heard it.
What's her name again?
The Little Death. You can find her on Instagram. It's The Little Death BC, all in one word.
Okay, I can remember that. Yeah, on the My Dying Bride, the heavy metallurgy show, after we wrapped, Marty made Alan and I listen to that a cappella group that does like the Metallica covers.
Yeah,
and it's so annoying.
Is it that Edward and the Cheese or something? Was it that group? Like, he does like Vegas type of cover?
No, they do the battery cover. I forgot the name of it, but it's terrible.
Yeah, it's like the type of thing where like probably 30 seconds into it, I'm like, okay, can we change the station, please? I'm good.
Because there's scat singing the Metallica riffs like da 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 da, you know.
Yeah, it's Van Canto.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that song until I think it was Marty Worm brought it up in one of the streams. I listened to it. It's like, oh my god, it's almost like I had PTSD from it.
Yeah. Oh man.
And I already got PTSD from ABBA, so this one is one of the songs I don't need.
Yeah. There's some ABBA songs out there I don't mind, so but that's for another time.
Oh boy. All
right. Okay, so honorable mentions, Peel Sessions. We got the Cenopath and EP, and then also the Spearhead EP. Got a couple covers.
They do have 2 demos, and I only just heard one on YouTube.
And
they have basically, I haven't heard it, but there's a version of In Battle There Is No Law with the old vocalist. It was a demo version.
Yeah. You know, I did not YouTube any of the demos to prepare for this. That's something that I'm going to go back. What's that one? Oh, okay. So you have the Slimline.
Yeah, this is the Slimline. I paid $5 for this for Spearhead. About 2017.
Yeah.
At a local CD record store.
Nice.
So I was very happy to find this because these ones are not easy to find.
Well, I have to say. Yeah, the thing with the Slimlines, the CD singles, and this is kind of maybe just taking kind of a step back to, you know, getting into Bolt Thrower in the 90s and stuff, is that, you know, that was still at a time when I got my music from brick and mortar music stores, and Earache was considered an import. You know, and that type of stuff, you know, back then, Earache, from like where I lived, Earache, you know, that was underground metal, and, you know, those were imports. So it wasn't really that easy to just find Earache stuff just out at a store. And when you did, it was more expensive because, you know, they had to fly it from overseas, I guess, or something. But, you know, it was easy to find the Metallicas and the Megadeths and stuff. But, you know, Earache bands, that was all considered an import at the time.
Yes, that's right. Although at the time, what happened was they actually had to contact Combat Records and Relativity Records to actually arrange an agreement to do a licensing distribution deal for the North American side of the continent.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there's several other releases that never came out outside of the UK. For example, the EPs and so on. Like, this is one example that you're never ever going to find anywhere in North America.
Yeah, I think I remember back in the 90s, I think from what I remember, Slimline were CD singles and EPs were always imports. I don't remember. I mean, like the Slimline form factor for packaging was unique to imports. What I remember, because
I think that was a European thing. I mean, there are probably certain releases in the US, but I remember getting a lot of. I'm trying to think of all like the Slimline CDs I have from the 90s, and they were all, you know, European, you know, single imports.
Yeah. You know, at that time, I remember Metallica, the Black Album, all of the singles that they released for that. There was a Slimline version of it that always had like an extra track. But then the Slimlines always cost pretty much the same as just a regular as an album, and they always had a sticker on it that said like "Made in Holland" or something like that. But that again, those were always in the import section.
Yeah, pretty much. It's the thing is, we here in Canada, we do get some of those. I remember there's a Cocteau Twins single box set which I have in my collection that it does come out with a whole slew of slimline cases, and that's also available only in UK and Canada. So, and of course, and when I did the digging through all the CDs at the thrift stores, I always come across Elton John's "Candle in the Wind" slimline cases. I swear, I came across like dozens of those.
Made in England.
Oh yeah. Let's see here. I'm getting good with that.
Oh, yeah. There's an example. This is a Tori Amos CD.
Okay.
Yeah, Tori Amos is pretty good. I like her.
That's proof that Tom is a Marylander. Got the Tori Amos CD. All right. So, okay. So slimline CD singles. I like the direction of this conversation. I love talking about obscure formats like that. I always my issue with the slim lines is I always felt the spines were too small. So when you had them on a shelf, you couldn't really if the slim lines were maybe just a couple millimeters wider, I think it would have been the perfect, jewel case format for CDs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Okay. So moving on to the albums. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the earliest release and then just go in chronological order of release. And then just whatever our ranking is. Do you guys just want to save our ranking for the end, sort of build up the suspense, and then just have or do we want to kind of just have our ranking, declare our ranking while we're talking about the album? What do you think would be best?
You could do it after we're done talking about that album, like give our ranking.
Yeah.
So if we save it to the end of the show, but the thing is, if you say this album sucks, and obviously you're giving away what the ranking is.
Okay. I gotcha.
But we could say when we're done talking about the album, saying you're 4, I'm 3, Wilson's 2.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like what Melanie and Marty and Alan did with the Slayer deep dive.
Okay, and you know what? I'm going to be the note keeper, so that way we just have the meeting, the minutes. I'll record the minutes for this of what our rankings are.
Okay, Secretary Chris.
Yeah. Okay, Bolt Thrower. Okay, and all right. So, starting with 1988. In battle, there is no law. This is the only one that I don't have on vinyl.
This is the only one I have on vinyl.
Oh, really?
We're inverted.
Okay.
I love the center label.
Yeah, the center label on vinyl, it has the guy with the headphones on, and he's kind of just yeah. Okay.
Yeah. This one is the original press.
Oh, you have an OG.
Yeah, this is the Back on Black reissue. I just recently got this because I had this on CD in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And for this deep dive, I rebought a couple of these because my music collection has experienced difficulties over the years in terms of theft and flood and various stuff. So I thought it was a good opportunity to finally rebuy this. I just had when I backed up the CD. Yeah.
Yeah, I need the CD actually because that's the only thing I'm missing in my collection.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've been a victim of theft too, and it's really frustrating when you think you can trust people, then you learn that you can't. All right. In Battle, There Is No Law. It's the debut album. It was recorded at Loco Studios. Oh hell, let me get this up here. All right. Recorded at Loco Studios by Andrew Fryer. Mixed at Clockwork by Alan Scott. It was released on Vinyl Solutions in 1988, and then re-released in 92 with a different sleeve. The album was again re-released in 05 with the old sleeve restored. The sound of the album dominantly featured characteristics of grindcore with lyrics socio-politically charged, as the members had roots in hardcore punk and created a sound that was heavily influenced by their roots. Thoughts, impressions of In Battle There Is No Law.
And on the cover, this is the bolt thrower in question.
Yeah. The ballista. Right
here.
The
whatever the blueprint or whatever.
Yeah,
an actual bolt thrower. And at least during the 90s, I thought bolt thrower, it was like a Thor reference, like he's throwing bolts of lightning. I didn't realize it was named after the giant crossbow from Warhammer, the Warhammer game.
Well, it was actually used in real life during the medieval times. So it's a name of the medieval weapon, but it's also used in the Warhammer universe too, of course.
Yeah, and like the Lord of the Rings universe, at least I think one of the movies and the Lord of the Rings role-playing game also has one.
Yes. And regarding this album, yeah, this is actually, I actually like this one a lot. This album, because I love the raw sound. I love the vocals by Carl Willits. This is his first appearance in this album after Alan West left the band.
Yeah, so, and I think he was like their driver and roadie, Carl was. So I think they were like, hey, you want to be the vocalist? He's like, sure.
Yeah.
I think that was the story.
Now, did Alan West do vocals on this? What were his vocals only featured on Peel Sessions, or he has vocals on here too, right?
No, I think just that there's the demo of this he's on, I believe.
Yeah, and the first Peel Session actually did feature Alan West. And just to make sure, Alan West is not confused with the guitars from Obituary.
Yeah.
Just to let anybody know in case somebody gets a little confused for a second.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay, yeah. So it's Carl on vocals on all of this, but the original demos are with Alan West on vocals. You know, my thought about this album, I do not like the sound of it. I think that the drums just sound like sheet metal. The vocals are way too like reverby or echoey. Like it sounds like Carl is in a hallway doing the vocals, and I feel like those two things kind of just muddy up the sound of the guitars. I think that the sound of this album, it's really lousy. I wish that they would have re-recorded this album later on, just because it's really, in my opinion, just the sore thumb out of the Bolt Thrower collection. It doesn't sound like a Bolt Thrower album. Musically, yeah, there are times when it's a little sloppier. It's definitely not as clean as all of their later releases. But the most difficult thing for me to get past are just the drums that like seriously just sound like he's banging on sheet metal, and then the vocals are just so in your face and just so echoey. I just get annoyed by it.
Yeah, and well, on that note, I will say that this album has grown on me because the production has kind of grown on me. in terms of getting into, the latter half of the 80s crust stuff. There's a lot of stuff that kind of sounds like this.
Yeah.
And particularly the I thought, the drums sounded bad, but they've kind of grown on me just because it's kind of the sound of the latter half of the 80s crusty type stuff.
Yeah. Because I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, what I was going to say is that there was I remember releases, like I have a Doom album where it sounds just as echoey. Something about, there must have been some studio where they were recording where it was just someone's garage, and there was no sound insulation or anything. Like, they were recording and there was probably like just a car in the corner or something, because right? Yeah, there was, or like, oh, here, your snare head is broken. Well, here, just play on this trash can. Like that's the type of sound that
the drums are just bouncing off a car. The drum, the sound waves. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, it's kind of growing on me in the context of similar comparable albums from that time period that sound like that. But I like just apart from the drums, just the general rawness and fierceness of the production. It just sounds like they're just bashing away at everything.
Yeah.
And the more punk production, I think, for the most part, works for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of stands apart in their catalog, just because it has a much more kind of punk feel to it than all of their other albums.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are there any like a couple songs that stand out for me? Is Forgotten Existence is a song that I always really liked a lot. Blind to Defeat is a CD bonus track that's not on the vinyl pressing. Of course, In Battle There Is No Law is a classic song of theirs. Concession of Pain is another one that I really liked a lot. Are there any for you guys, any tracks that really kind of stand out? I really wish that they would have re-recorded this album again, like later on, because it's really, maybe they should do that nowadays, is just do like a 2023
Yeah. What I really like Challenge for Power, and I absolutely love Psychological Warfare.
Mm-hmm.
These are my standout songs, and of course the title track In Battle There's No is also my favorite. I like to say about the production of In Battle There's No Law, I love the crusty hardcore punk sound in this one. It with like mixture of like the grind sound, it just sound, I don't know, it just sounds perfect for me. It's almost like they captured a lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And with that sound I really like, even though of course it doesn't sound good to some people. But one thing that they were heavily influenced a lot was from the band Sacrilege, from the album Behind the Realm of Madness, which another excellent album in that vein. Although they're more into the thrashy sound rather than more the grind death sound to it.
Yeah, that's one of my notes, is like it sounds like a proto death metal version of that album. If you had to just make a sort of compare it to what was going on at the time. And also, yeah, another note, it has like a wide variety of riffs of just different heavy stuff that was going on at the time. Like, you hear Discharge type riffs. You're starting to hear, they do have, especially in the song Psychological Warfare, to me, it points to where they're going a little bit. You hear more of bolt throwery type riffs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hear on this album, you hear like the grindy riffs, the thrashy riffs. It's sort of they don't really have their total bolt thrower sound yet, so it's just kind of a variety of punk and metal riffs that were going around, the UK at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were heavily influenced by Venom, Metallica, Slayer. They're also all at the same time were influenced by Discharge, Varukar, and Crass as well. So they kind of grab wherever they like, and they just kind of mash it together. And of course, Sacrilege, Behind the Realm of Madness. So you can even hear the way how the guitar solos was done. It sounds very similar to what Sacrilege was doing. It was, I think, might be done by Gavin Ward, I think, who's doing the solos. So he kind of more or less almost copy and pasting from that album to this one, but they somehow made it work. So it sounds almost unique in that sense, with these varying elements that they included in that release.
Yeah, I also say like an Amoebix influence, and I still don't know how that's properly pronounced, but I've always pronounced it Amoebix.
Amoebix is correct pronunciation.
Okay. And yeah, I would say my favorite song is Nuclear Annihilation. I just love the drumming and the sort of very crusty verses, and I love how the tape just slows down at the end. Like it's just like the perfect way to end like a punk album. Like the tape breaks, so it's over.
Yeah.
And then Blind to Defeat is awesome. That's to me the most thrashiest. It sounds like almost like early German, or the closest thing to like early German thrash or something. And then Concession of Pain is more metal. It has kind of the galloping riff, and that's a great one. Those are kind of the three songs that stand out to me.
Yeah. It's Blind to Defeat, definitely. Yeah, that's a good track. I like that one. All right, so what about our rankings? Where I'm keeping score here. Where does In Battle There Is No Law? How's that fit into your ranking?
Tom?
For me, this is the one that's grown on me the most over the years. They would have been near the bottom, at least I got this originally in the late 90s. They would have been near the bottom, but now I rank it as my number 5. So, and I really like that it's kind of a different version of the band.
Mm-hmm.
A really cool variation on crust. There's also bands like Axe Grinder, Hell Bastard, that released demos like the year before this band, and then they really took it in like that proto-death direction. So it's my number 5.
Number 5. All right, Wilson, how about you?
I rank this number 4 as my top bolt thrower albums. So mainly because it grew. At first, it took me about at least one full listen to actually get me fully into this album. And when I listened to it, it's like, oh my god, it clicked on me. And now I can listen to this whole album straight throughout, no problem at all. This one, even though despite this somewhat copying the varying band elements, other bands' elements, and whatnot, and the somewhat crummy production to it, which, despite the fact that I actually like it, these are the ones that kind of held back with the rankings to me. But other than that, it's very listenable to me.
Yeah. Okay, so you're number 4. That's your 4th favorite.
Yes.
By them. For me, oh man, this is a tough one. I am going to rank this at 7. It's number 7 for me.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I just, again, that I do like that, sort of that crust feel that it has. I just have such a problem with just the drums and the vocals on it, where it's just so It's just, especially the drums. They sound so horrible in the mix that I just have a difficult time getting past that. So I'm ranking In Battle There Is No Law number 7 for me. All right. Now we're going to move on to let's see here. Hold on. God damn it. Oh, stop that. Okay, hold on. Hold on 1 second. I need to. My cat.
Oh, your kitty cat.
Oh yeah, and then he just wants to roll all over the keyboard and screw everything up.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, you can't. All right, here we are. Realm of Chaos, Slaves to Darkness. Their second album, recorded at Loco Studios in April of '89 and engineered by Tim Lewis. Mixed at Slaughterhouse Studios in July of '89 and engineered by Colin Richardson, who is a name that pops up pretty frequently in their history, their album history. It was produced by Bolt Thrower and Digby Pearson. The cover artwork was produced by Games Workshop. The whole album is closely tied to Games Workshop's Warhammer 40,000. And Realm of Chaos, Slaves to Darkness was the title of a gaming book by Games Workshop released in 1988. The album was released on Earache Records, Mosh 13 in '89. In '05, a reissue was released by Earache featuring new artwork. The band advises not to buy the reissue as they have not been involved and will not get royalties. Realm of Chaos displays a progression from its previous output in speed and riffage. There is a strong focus on blast beats in many of the songs with chaotic guitar soloing. Nevertheless, the signature heavy riffing is also apparent. So Realm of Chaos, it seems like Earache Records is great at burning bridges with their artists. There's definitely, I wonder if I guess there's probably not a better business bureau over there, but yeah, I've heard we know of too many stories of bands just getting screwed over by Earache, and of course Bolt Throwers, yet another one who got screwed by Earache. All right, so Realm of Chaos, Slaves to Darkness, impressions, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, this is again it takes their sound in a different direction. It's still, I think, more rooted in thrash, and you still have kind of the grind stuff and their death metal sound to come. But to me, this is their kind of thrashiest album. I mean, for example, I guess my favorite track is World Eater, which is an obvious choice, but like some of those riffs sound very much like Slayer to me.
Yeah.
And I think there's a big Slayer influence on this album. And yeah, and this is when I had to rebuy, so I bought this stupid reissue. So apparently Games Workshops didn't let them reuse the cover, so they did this new artwork. But anyways, yeah, and I think a really influential album, and you know, a lot of great riffs. I mean, I would say All That Remains is kind of a doomier song. Lost Souls Domain reminds me of a song that could have been on the previous album. And I don't know, Drown in Torment is another one that's really good that stands out.
Yeah.
Like they have kind of and that's another one, grindier parts, but also like very Slayery. There's like a dissonant Slayery riff on there that's really cool. Yeah, and so, but I still, to me, their sound is the Bolt Thrower sound that we know and love is sort of in the process of being created on this album. It's not quite there yet. To me, their next album is where you have the Bolt Thrower riff style in full effect.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess, and then my only, so I think it's a really strong album from beginning to end. My only two knocks on it, really, I never liked the guitar tone on this album. It's heavy, like it sounds really detuned, but it has that thing with certain detuned guitar tones where it sounds squishy, like
Mm-hmm.
you're squishing the strings or something.
Yeah.
To me, it always sounded like a little weird. And then, and just that the, again, there's really good riffs all over this thing, but some of the riffs sound to me like more conventional thrash riffs and aren't as unique versus some of their later songs in terms of the riffing style and variations of riffing.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be my only two complaints about it.
Okay. All right. And then yeah, I know what you're saying about some of the, and I'm not a guitar, I've never played a guitar in my life, but I know what you're talking about, sort of that mushy type of sound.
Mm-hmm.
With some of the notes. Yeah, I agree. I mean, World Eater, probably my favorite song off of this album. I think that's probably considered one of their probably top 3 songs. It's definitely, I've known that as always being one of their most well-known songs. Eternal War is a song that I've always liked a lot. Plague Bearer is another one that I also really enjoy. Yeah, it's so. How about you in the catalog? Where you putting this in the
Me?
ranking? Yeah.
Oh, well, this might surprise some people, but I have it as my number 7.
Yeah.
But I think it's because a lot of, at least amongst the older metalhead crowd, a lot of times this is their number 1 or number 2
Mm-hmm.
from rankings I've seen. But again, I think it's just because you have to put something at number 7. Like, I think it's, they have their kind of, to me, they're kind of 3 really great albums, and then underneath that, like 4 really good albums. And this is amongst those 4 to me, like the tier. And it's just really those 2, points. I think the guitar tone, and then they rely on a lot of thrashy riffing. It's sort of that we're kind of used to.
Right.
And it's not as unique riffing style as they would get. So
yeah,
but still a really good and very influential album.
Yeah. It's let's see here. All right. Yeah, Andre says it's crazy to think an album this heavy came out in '89. Yeah, it is, especially for that time. Definitely really heavy.
And yeah, and keep in mind, I probably didn't get this until 96 or 7 or something. So this is when wasn't a case where like it dropped and this was the heaviest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
In '89, I wasn't. So that's a big. I think a lot of people who remember when this album came out, a lot of metal fans, like it's one of their, they hold it in such high regard because it was kind of ahead of the time.
Yeah, and this was the first physical Bolt Thrower album that I owned. Again, I didn't get it until probably around '98, maybe is around the time when I got it, since I was a late comer. But it definitely at that time really. I gotta give him some food to get him to shut up. But yeah, solid album from start to finish. It really is. There's not a dull moment during the entire album. All right, so that's your number 7. Wilson, why don't you give us your thoughts? I'm gonna go give the cat some food so he'll leave me alone. But yeah.
Okay, so I'll show off some of my albums. So I'll show off the CD I have. This is the original CD through Earache Records for Relativity label.
Yeah,
right
that I used to have that.
Yeah, so here it is. That's the actual CD in yellow color, followed by this is my actual copy that I first got. This is the original UK press. Unfortunately, It did not came with the booklet, so I was kind of sad about that. I was a sad panda when I discovered it, but then again, I got it for an okay price. Otherwise, so
yeah, and I think they have a full FDR version of that. I believe I've seen that.
this is unforgettable artwork. I absolutely love this.
Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, you have the FDR release or the 2000 after the late 2000. They had to do an alternate artwork by John Siddick, who works for Game Workshop. So this is the alternate artwork that was commissioned for Earache Records to do the reissue of Realm of Chaos, which it doesn't look as good in my opinion. I didn't find it quite engaging compared to the original Realm of Chaos Slave of Darkness artwork that was used right here. So
yeah, I love just the kind of design of that original artwork in terms of it, like these two forces kind of blending together while they're fighting. And
exactly.
You totally don't get any of that with the redo.
Yeah, and according to the notes, to the various information I was digging up online, it actually was not the decision. It was actually by Game Workshop, sorry, that decided no, you're not allowed to do it anymore because apparently what happened was they sent out cease and desist and copyright infringement like strikes against Earache Records for reissuing the Realm of Chaos with the original artwork, and even the band themselves, according to Gavin and Ward and Joe Bench, they mentioned that even if they can't do it even if they wanted to, because otherwise they had to pay money up to Yang Yang. They mentioned they spent over 18,000 British pounds just to get that license out for the artwork.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Stories you hear about Earache is not, copyright. They if they lose the license or don't have copyright, they still use it. At least I've heard stories like that.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm sorry.
So so with John Siddick, so they had to hire him to redo the artwork, and I know a lot of people did not like it as much. There's I know they get bugged a lot, Earache, but I think Earache, as you mentioned, they did burn a lot of bridges, including Dan Seagrave, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's one thing too about copyright law, and I believe that when it comes to something like with album art or just anything like that in general, photography, is that if the original is altered up to a certain percentage, then they can still use it. So, where say for how there's the Altars of Madness reissue that Earache did, but then they scaled it up really large. Something like that, where if it's distorted up to if there's a certain amount of distortion or alterations made to the original, then they can still use it and get around the whole, cease and desist and, the whole copyright infringement type of stuff. Because I've seen because Earache is they're still, schlepping a lot of Dan Seagrave stuff. Their line of merch. Earache is an awful label. Wilson, I remember in the chat one time you said if you were rich, you would buy their entire catalog, and
I would.
Yeah, we gotta team up and just just buy the rights to everything, and then just make it a proper metal label, because it is just a joke of their merch, like those puzzles. I saw that they have some stupid puzzles of Altars of Madness and stuff. It's just the most generic garbage that they put out. But yeah.
I know it's funny because when I went to see Carcass live, they actually had a couple puzzle pieces their earache era stuff,
Mhm.
which is kind of hilarious when I saw it. It's like, really? That's
Yeah.
odd.
Well, they have
But,
a song about human puzzle, so that for the Carcass that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. But anyways, time to get back on the topic. So
is your Realm of Chaos, is that a first press, the one with the sticker and the OG art?
yes, that's right. This is the original first press UK.
Okay, so John Sibic, he did the art for both versions, the new one and the OG.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And so with this whole album, I had to say, when I first heard World Eater, it was like first love at first listen.
Mm-hmm.
It is I absolutely love the beginning riff and the galloping type riffs they kind of go through, and they go into the full out blast beats and all this, and the vocals by Carl Willits, which, by the way, Carl Willits' vocals was down pitched with a pitch shifter on purpose during the production of the album. So it's not really his real low guttural vocals
Right.
in it. They use effects on it. But this album is absolutely crushing. And there's a lot of good. I have a lot of good things to say about Realm of Chaos. And of course, don't forget the lyrics. A lot of the lyrics is heavily referencing the Warhammer 40k universe. They talk about, I don't know much. I don't know anything about the Warhammer 40k, but I know that a lot of the songs reference the Chaos Space Marines, which is the World Eaters, Realm of Chaos, Chaos God, and the Demons. Plague Bearer, which is referencing the Chaos Space Marines, Death Guard. Group they were mentioning, and the riffs, the drumming, everything is so good. This is one of the things I can listen a fair bit, and my standout tracks, in my opinion, would be Lost Souls Domain, which it also a decimating track, and Through the Eye of Terror, and of course World Eater.
Mm-hmm.
So I know some people might be curious about the FDR version versus the original. So here, with respect to the sound quality, this, based on the A being that I did quite a while ago, I had to say that this one is better sounding.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. I have, let me see here. So this is the FDR. I think 2012 is when this pressing was released. This is the only vinyl press that I have, but then I also have the this is with the original art, and I think this is a second pressing from 1995, maybe.
Oh,
it doesn't have the illustrated face. It's just the okay, yeah. So I think 95 is when this came out, and then this is just a 2005. Okay, no, I'm sorry. This was 1995. This was 2005. Yep. And then this is 2018 FDR. When I compared these, I'd have to say that the FDR is the best sounding. It's the most balanced. There's not anything that like really sticks out and is like, loud or anything. Yes. Again, earache with their shitty reissues. The only upside is that the sound quality is better in most of the FDR things. Everything else is an absolute joke with the reissue of like, oh, if you want the liner notes, go to earache.com and download a PDF. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I'd say that of these 3 CDs, that the versions that I have, this is the best sounding.
Yeah. So after all the listening to it, the only downside, 2 minor downside I had to say with this album is there's not that much bass on that album, which is a little slight disappointing. So you can't really hear Joe Bench's bass work all that much. And I feel that maybe a couple songs could be retailored a bit more. Because I found a couple songs that it didn't really gel well as much, but they're still great songs nevertheless. But I feel it could be a little bit more memorable in some way.
Okay.
But other than that, Realm of Chaos, yeah, great. I absolutely like that album.
All right. So what's your ranking?
Number 2.
Number 2. All right. Ooh, boy, this is tough. I'm going to give this a number 4 for me. All right. So Tom, Realm of Chaos is your 7. I'm 4. And it's Wilson's number 2. All right. Wipe the sweat off of my forehead for that.
No regrets, right? No regrets.
Man, I'm telling you, it is tough. All right. Moving on here to War Master. War Master is the 3rd album by Bolt Thrower. It was recorded at Slaughterhouse Studios in September of 1990 and produced by Bolt Thrower and again Colin Richardson. It was released on Earache Records, Mosh number 29 in 1991. Whereas Realm of Chaos was dominated by grindcore-based blast and riffs, this album abandons most of the grindcore influences for a sound that is more strictly death metal. Moreover, there's more melody in the music and the guitar solos, although some chaotic solos remain. This is also the final Bolt Thrower album to feature the blast beat style of drumming, before it was abandoned and subsequently never used thereafter in the Bolt Thrower discography. Cenotaph is the thematic continuation of the song World Eater from the previous record. The closing riff from World Eater is the same as the opening riff from Cenotaph, and also used in Embers from the Fourth Crusade, Powder Burns from Mercenary, and The Kill Chain from Those Once Loyal. The album was extensively sampled on Dutch breakcore producer Bong Ra's album Full Metal Racket, with allusions also song titles such as Bloody Cenotaph and Joe Bench. All right. War Master. And you know, one thing that is interesting about their vinyl releases, there was a 45 RPM version of War Master that was released. And I think what it was is that sides A, B, and C had the songs, and then side D was an etching, I believe. I remember when that was released, I want to say probably maybe sometime around 2005, and it sold out almost immediately. I was thinking about ordering it, but then it was like the thing where I had to buy it from overseas, and I just never got around to it. So my version of War Master, I like that Eric actually went the extra mile and made this a gatefold. So, you know, I like that. It has a nice liner, the inner sleeve, a nice printed inner sleeve right here. And it actually it shows, you know, the artwork in progress for the cover of War Master. I like that a lot. This is one of the FDR reissues that I think it sounds great. I don't have another pressing to compare it to. But then what I also have here is this is a 2018 FDR CD. I can't read. White font on yellow background is not like good art direction at all. I can't read what that says, but whatever. It's like a 2000s CD reissue with this face on the disc. And then I have this one, which is a combat pressing that has the weird face.
That's the one I used to have.
Yeah.
And, I just have the FDR one now.
Okay. All right. So Wilson, it looks like you and I have the same. Is this like a mid 90s press? Or no, this is 1991. 91.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So yeah, this is a combat version. Again, I was most impressed with the FDR. I think this was the best sounding of the 3 CD pressings that I have.
Okay.
Favorite songs for me. I like Afterlife a lot. I think that is a great song. It's just totally just a banger. Cenotaph is really good. The intro song is, and then What Dwells Within. Rebirth of Humanity. Again, this album from start to finish, it's solid. There's not a dull moment at all. I would have to say probably Afterlife is maybe my favorite song off of the album. Yeah. So I mean that's me. How about Tom?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this album's great. Again, I said this earlier, but I've only listened to it with this Destructive Infinity in the middle, so to me, it's still part of the album. If I had to pick a favorite song, I guess What Dwells Within. Just that main riff is so awesome. Unleashed Upon Mankind is great. Shreds of Sanity is great as kind of a doomier track. And I think you do get more of, people usually say Fourth Crusade is their doomier album, but I think you do get quite a few really good doomy moments on this album that kind of really add to the flow of the songwriting. And Cenotaph, yeah, of course, Cenotaph is great. And then it has there's the thing, Chris mentioned this, but you know, the outro from World Eater, they repurpose that on different tracks.
Yeah.
So the opening of Cenotaph is like the outro from World Eater, and they do this a couple more times. And then I love there's a few other examples of this, but in Afterlife, they have that closing riff that kind of builds out the album. And they do that really great, and this is one example, and there's a couple more in their career where the last album they have, you know, a riff that they return to that kind of builds out the album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then War Master, the title track is great. It's thrashier, and it has the awesome riff that they go to in the middle that I love. So yeah, really strong. And I think you see more of the whatever that bolt thrower riff style that's singular to them. Mm-hmm. This is where it really comes to the forefront, where it's really developed, and it's more of a more kind of complex riff style than they had in the past 2 albums. But there's still a couple of like kind of grindier moments too. Mm-hmm. So I just love the flow of the album. Yeah, so in terms of the ranking, I have it ranked as my number 4. But again, it's not really, there's nothing wrong really
Yeah.
You know, with the I can't even think of anything negative to say about it, to be honest, but it's my number 4.
Okay, that's
your
your
I have to, you know.
Yeah. I'm making it my number. Oh god, this is tough. I'm gonna put it up there as my number 3. Okay, and then so War Master is number 3 for me, 4 for you, and then let's see here, Wilson.
Okay, so it's my turn. Okay, so I have the original CD as shown before. This is my original press right here.
Okay.
Unfortunately, without the booklet, so that kind of sucks.
Is that a gatefold?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
The original is the same gatefold as that. So here's the band. You can see one of them, the center, across his arms. That's pretty much the trademark of all metal musicians.
Yeah.
You know, doing publicity shots.
And they could never smile either. Like, nope. Yeah, right. Yeah, folded like this and with like the big Reeboks on, and then just looking pissed off.
Unless you're Halloween, you can get away with it. And this is the FDR release right here. Okay. This is the one that was lacquer cut by Noel Somerville, who actually did the lacquer cut for the original as well.
Yeah.
Right down to the same Matrix Runout message.
Really?
Yep, he did that. But if you were to get the later releases, it does not include it because there will probably be either do a direct metal master through GZ. I almost said GZ, but I'm sure a lot of Americans would say, what's GZ? But anyways, because otherwise it's a lacquer cut, and I actually I haven't done a real comparison of the audio between both releases, so I haven't done it yet, but I'm sure the FDR's probably sounds better, but I'll do a future post on my Instagram account when I get around to that. I got too much stuff on the go. So music-wise, they lost a fair bit of the grindcore elements other than the blast beats that you can hear on several of their tracks. The music is very straight. This is probably the most straightforward typical death metal sound, or at least closest to it you get from the late 80s, early 90s type of feel. So there are my favorite tracks are Cenotaph, where Dwells Within, War Master, and Afterlife.
Yeah.
Now, the lyrics, I think that's where they're come to the point where they're starting to change a bit. They went to a different direction lyrically. So they started to lean away from the Warhammer 40K. They started to delve into more of the real life issues regarding war. The socio-political elements are also included in some of their songs. So, and that's where they kind of go more leaning away from the more of the fantasy to more into the real world things that happen today. So a lot of the songs are great. The one that held me back a lot on this one is the production. I personally do not like the production on this one. Personally, because I find the way how it's mixed is not that great. Because it sounded quite uneven, I find, from my personal opinion. Because you hear a lot of the drums, but it kind of drowns out from the other instruments, like the guitars by Barry and Gavin's and Joe's bass work. So you hear but Carl Willett's vocals is fine. It's just you hear too much of the drums, so it kind of drowns out a bit. So I didn't like that as much with the production. I think that's the one that held back the most from this album, I find.
I always felt that the cymbals sounded weird on this one. Like the cymbals just I I don't really like the sound of the cymbals in this one. I can't really label exactly what it is about the cymbals, but I understand what you're saying about the percussion, the sound on this album. I agree, and I think that with their early albums, not In Battle, but Realm, War Master, and the Fourth Crusade, to me, they kind of suffered from like a compressed sound. It didn't feel like there was like a lot of dynamic range in just the mixing. Everything always not like a brick walled type of sound, but it just kind of had like just sort of like a kind of a sterile, but sort of just like a muddy type of production. Does that make sense? Like, am I talking out of my ass, or does anybody else kind of like understand what I'm getting at?
I think it's maybe tape compression, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I could think of. Because I know you could do like an analog compression, like compressing the dynamic range. This is not like a digital domain alone, but you could do it on an analog side. But I don't know. That's a question you might have to ask the former members of Bolt Thrower and go and register on that. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'll just send them a text like, "Hey, so what's up with that? Why did everything sound so compressed early on?"
Exactly. But this one, I'm sure with my ranking on this one, I'm sure some people are not gonna be happy with it, but I'm gonna put that as number 5.
Ooh, okay. So that one's at the lower end of wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's my so-called hot take. Yeah.
Oof.
Sorry, folks.
All right. Well, you know what? I don't think differently of you. We'll put it that way. But I'm sure other people in the VC, though, there's going to be some chatter tomorrow about you putting War Master that low on the list.
Yeah, some people are not going to be very happy. But that's my opinion. I'm sorry. It's just how I see things, or hear things rather.
The VC water cooler is going to be a buzzing.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe not. I'm just a nobody in the VC anyways. I'm more of an Instagram guy, so I'm pretty sure I could avoid some of that, some of the so-called controversial opinions.
Well, no. This is what's going to catapult you into the controversy now. Is like, it's You were relatively obscure within the VC, but now when this gets out is like now when the shit hits the fan and the paparazzi will be sitting out in front of your house.
Yeah, you'll become a meme, and then you could sell, War Masters number 5. Deal with it. T-shirts.
Right.
Yeah. I guess.
And then sell the opposing T-shirt, War Masters number 1, and they could go after each other, and you'll walk away rich selling those shirts.
Oh man. All right. Okay. So War Master. I always wondered what was up with that 45 RPM pressing. I wish I would have bought it when I had a chance. It was just one of those things where I was in this position in life where I really shouldn't have been ordering records from overseas. like when you're on a tight budget, luxury items like that should really take a back seat to certain things. And unfortunately, I was being a responsible adult at the time. I wish I wasn't. I wish I was carefree with my spending back then. But because I don't even know if that's an earache release. It might have just been like just a special, really limited pressing. But
I don't see any evidence on Discogs about that. I'm looking through right now on Discogs. I don't see anything within that time frame, unless it's like an unofficial release of some kind.
No, you know what it is? It's the white pressing with the 12-inch. So it's okay. It's the 2014 pressing, and it's
Oh,
a
okay.
12-inch. It's 30. Okay, I'm sorry. It's not 45 RPM. It's 33. But then it has. Okay, so it has Rebirth of Humanity and Afterlife are the C sides, and then the D side is an etching. So it's not really like a true like audiophile pressing. It's kind of just the gimmick of having the etching, which I could care less about. But man, there's one going for $145. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. This is the funny situation with Earache because it was licensed to Century Media, so
Mm-hmm.
they had some sort of a relationship at some point with between Earache and Century Media. But then I think Earache and Century Media had some animosity towards each other at some point, and I guess it was a very short-lived period between the two.
Yeah.
But looking at the details, I'm reading about it. It was pressed at MPO through Noiseland Industries, which is located in Minneapolis, Minnesota, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yes. But I'm not familiar with this one. I'm not sure if this is like it was a lacquer cut by Noel Somerville at the time.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure it's the FDR release either because it was never labeled as such.
So the one that I have, the FDR, was pressed at GZ Media, and I honestly, again, I think most of the FDR pressings are pressed at GZ. They sound great. I mean, I clean it, I discharge the static. I don't hear any pops or anything like that. They're silent. They're not 180 gram, but they're definitely on the heavier side. And I buy the black vinyl, of course. But yeah, I still think that the FDR stuff still all sounds better than what I've heard so far for compared to originals. All right, so War Master is your 5. Okay. So now moving on to where are we at here? The Fourth Crusade. All right. The Fourth Crusade, fourth album by British death metal band Bolt Thrower. It was recorded at Sawmill Studios in August of 92 and produced by Bolt Thrower and again Colin Richardson. The album was engineered by John Kornfeld and mixed at Fawn Studios. It was also engineered by Alan Fish and Steve Harris. Steve Harris of Iron Maiden.
Is it the same? There's probably a lot of Steve Harris's.
I guess it is kind of like I think it's the same one. But it is kind of just a generic run of the mill name. But like Bob Jones and stuff. I think it's the same because Steve Harris also
why would he be bothering mixing
in
the early 90s? I don't know. I kind of doubt it, but
yeah, I doubt it's the same Steve Harris that people know of him of Iron Maiden. So no, I don't think it's him at all.
No. Okay, probably not. I don't know. Someone in the chat, people in the chat, someone do a little sleuthing for us. Find out if it's the same Steve Harris. It was released through Earache as Mosh 70 in 92. The album title comes from the Fourth Crusade and the capturing of Constantinople. The cover artwork is a painting from Eugene Delacroix showing the entry of the Crusaders in Constantinople. For this album, Bolt Thrower slowed down considerably compared to War Master, focusing more on playing heavy riffs and a thick sound. The album features a more death doom metal-driven style, and which was influenced by doom metal bands including Candlemass and Pentagram. Particularly, this style is apparent in songs like This Time It's War and As the World Burns. Embers opens and ends as Cenotaph did on the previous album War Master and leads into Powder Burns on Mercenary. All right. So, the Fourth Crusade. What I have here is this is the FDR CD. And then this is also just a one of these CDs from I want to say this is a probably like a 2000s pressing. Out of these two, again, the FDR sounds best. I think out of what I was talking about earlier about kind of some of the earlier albums suffering from like a compressed sound, I always felt this one had the least dynamic range. In it, I was always kind of just disappointed with the sound of this album. And then what I have here is, again, this is an FDR press with, let's see here, you know, the inner sleeve just with the lyrics, band photo, nothing special. My thoughts on Fourth Crusade is that this album is incredible. This album is my number one. This
is the same version I had since high school, so it's the 92 Eric Relativity.
Oh yeah?
Probably bought it in 94, 95.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm missing that CD. That's the FDR LP is the only copy I have of that album.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I had the opportunity to buy like an early pressing CD, but I never got around to it for some reason. Mm-hmm. So now I'm kicking my butt ever since.
That's just generic. So
that's what I like. I like the OG CDs that just had the simple face, you know, just with, you know, the title and not much more than that.
Exactly.
Fourth Crusade is my number one album for Bolt Thrower. I think it's just a great album. I mean, just from the opening song, and then when it just goes into Icon, Embers, We're Next to Conquer. I mean, the songs just flow seamlessly into each other. Things slow down a little bit with As the World Burns, and then This Time It's War, but then it picks up again with Ritual, and then going into Spearhead. I mean, you know, again, this is the thing with Bolt Thrower is that, you know, what's my number one today could be a different number one tomorrow or next week. You know, it's because everything is just so consistently awesome from them. But out of my history of listening to Bolt Thrower, historically, this has been my number one. So maybe if, you know, for all of the homework that I've been doing preparing for this deep dive, it wasn't maybe not my number one just within the past 2 weeks of just revisiting their catalog, but just my history with Bolt Thrower. This has always been my number one with them. I just think it's a great album. There's not a dull moment from start to finish. I think that this album is pretty awesome. And again, you know, with the FDR pressing, great quality pressing, nice and quiet, no pops, nothing like that. I think it sounds great. So, yeah, Fourth Crusade is my number one. Tom.
All right. So yeah, I concur in terms of everything you were saying. And I mentioned this earlier, but I would push back a little because in that Wikipedia article it calls it Death Doom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think I think it's just a little doomier than War Master, and especially those As the World Burns, This Time It's War, and then like some of and then Celestial Sanctuary.
Mhm.
Those are kind of the doomier tracks, but there's tons of thrashy, like regular metal riffs that aren't doomy. But yeah, some people, the way they describe this album, it's like it's a doom metal record.
Not at all.
I think that's way overstated.
Yeah.
So yeah, fun fact: if anyone watches the UFC, former UFC heavyweight champion Josh Barnett, he's his nickname is the War Master, and he has like Bolt Thrower themed merch. Like he has a deal with Bolt Thrower, and his walkout song was the Fourth Crusade. Which is really cool if you go back to watch. Well, it's actually, I think they cut it out of if you rewatch the pay-per-views, but considering all the UFC walkout songs were like douchey metal and hip hop,
right? Yeah,
like it was so awesome seeing somebody coming out to the Fourth Crusade. Such a cool choice. But yeah, so in terms of standout songs, I think one of the best metal riffs, not just death metal, not just Bolt Thrower, and they have so many amazing riffs, but the main riff in Ritual, I always just thought was one of the, and it's also like kind of a very snaky and complicated, like a long riff, but it's so cool. And that's always been one of my favorite riffs of theirs, and one of my favorite songs. So I would say Ritual and Fourth Crusade are my two favorite songs. We didn't talk too much about the drumming, but the Whale, he's he adds so much flavor to Bolt Thrower that makes him distinctive. Like the way he does his fills is just unique amongst metal. And also the song Icon, I really love the drumming, his little cymbal thing that he does and his little fills in that song in particular.
Right.
And then Embers uses, again, the quotes from World Eater. That middle riff and We're Next to Conquer is so great. And then I love that kind of creepy, doomy riff and Celestial Sanctuary that really fits kind of the song of like going to heaven or whatever. It's kind of their creepier, doomy song. That's pretty much it. I mean, I think this album is fantastic. The production is, I think this album and the album before, to me, the production is good enough. It's clearly not as good as For Victory, and that did stand out when I originally got these, but it doesn't particularly bother me. This is my number 2. I think the album's fantastic, and it's fairly long for them, but there's just a lot of variety to where it doesn't really feel long. I think it's because it didn't say it's like 55 minutes or something.
53:28.
Yeah, so it's like pretty, and none of these are bonus tracks, so this is actually pretty long album. But again, with the variety, the faster songs, the doomier songs, it works.
And you know what? I don't really understand why it's considered. Because I still think it's a pretty fast album. Like, I mean, it opens up, it's really fast. Icon, Embers, and then it slows down in the middle of the album. But then with Ritual, it picks right back up, and then into Spearhead, it's not like this like sludgy death doom type of.
No, I would say if you like counted, you can go and like count the doom metal riffs in the album, but I bet it's not that many more than War Master.
Right.
like maybe a few more per capita. And I would say, because the kind of doominess has been part of their sound and is going forward. Although it's usually kind of more of a mid-paced thing. So I would say if you counted up all the doom metal riffs on all their albums, this would have the most by a little bit. But that doesn't make it a doom metal record.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely not a doom metal record at all. Yeah, I still think it's a faster album than it is like a slow doom type of album. But yeah, all right, cool. All right, so this is your number 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the Fourth Crusade. Yeah, this is a really solid album. I mean, for the past 2 weeks preparing for this, I was really kind of stumped of what should be my number 1, but then I just had to like take a step back and think about historically what has been my favorite Bolt Thrower album, and it's been this one. So, all right, Wilson, you're up, and I'm gonna run to the bathroom really quickly. So yeah, I'll be back in 1 second. If I don't, if you have something awesome to show off, just wait about 30 seconds, and I'll be back.
Okay.
Well, I don't have anything special. Like I said before, this is the only physical copy of Bolt Thrower I have, which is the full diamond range pressing of this one. So this one was pressed at GZ, if I remember right. Don't remember where I bought this, but anyways, that's beside the point. Musically, I absolutely like this one a lot. It's probably the most varied sounding. So it takes some of the best elements from their older albums, and also, of course, it introduced some of the doomier elements that, as mentioned, it was from Candlemass and whatnot, and they kind of combined it together. They kind of made it work somehow. So there's not really much of a dull moment when listening to the whole album. So you get the slow build up, especially with the title track, The Fourth Crusade. So slowly it builds up. Then it gets into then slowly picks up and then goes into the full out speedy death metal sounds, death metal riffs and drumming. So I had to say this is a truly standout album, I had to say. And it also includes the fact that the lyrics actually goes completely away from the Warhammer 40K. They actually talked about like the historical conflicts that happened throughout human civilization, from the Crusades, of course, the War of Roses, World War One, World War Two, and all the way up to the First Gulf War. So there's a lot of, they cover a fair bit with the war out, talking about the war, but they do more of the they looked at more of objective than more of the anti-war sentiment that, as mentioned earlier by Chris here.
Yeah, I got a vibe that it's sort of, the recurring themes of war throughout history, like it's history repeating itself kind of thing.
Exactly. So that's, and production wise, actually is much, I find it more favorable than War Master. So yeah, the drums are still a little, you can hear a bit more in the mix, but I actually like the way how the drums sound in this one. So it doesn't sound as clicky as the War Master one.
Now, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go on, there, Chris.
Oh no. So which pressings do you have?
I only have the FDR LP. That's all I have.
Okay. All right. So and then is that a GZ Media press? What was it pressed at GZ? Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, and again, the quality control, it's good. I don't have any any of the FDRs that, because I think all of the FDRs are pressed at GZ Media, and I think they also
not quite. It was actually pressed at other places like MPO and Optimal Media.
Yeah, Optimal. Yeah.
In Germany.
Okay.
So
for the earache releases, at least. We'll get into the pressings for the Metal Blade stuff later on. So okay, cool. So you have the FDR vinyl. Do you have a CD?
I don't have the CD. That's the one I kicked myself after I saw a copy at one of my local record shops, and I didn't pick it up for some reason. Because I think at the time I was like, I'll get it later. At the time I picked up Death Symbolic. I picked up Gorguts, Erosion, the first album, Erosion of Sanity. No wait, it's Considered Dead. That's the one I prioritize over that one.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, Wilson, I have my OG press. If I pass away, you can have it if you promise to take care of my cat.
Wow,
that's the deal.
I'll take care of your cat. I will.
This can't be that.
Cats.
This can't be that expensive.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll get to it eventually. I'll find a copy someday. I'm not too worried about it. It's not a big priority, anyways. So the sound production, I absolutely like it. The riffs are more memorable, and my favorite tracks out of the ones that is the Fourth Crusade, the title track, Embers, Ritual, and Dying Creed.
Yeah,
that are like my top tier. These are the top tier tracks that I find in the Fourth Crusade.
Yeah, and
another known thing about it. This is the first album they started with like the number. They had their own numbering system in their tracks. So of course, the Fourth Crusade is their fourth album.
Oh, okay, yeah,
and you kind of start to see a bit of a pattern on that. With For Victory, V for Victory. V is Roman numeral for number for 5.
Oh, I never noticed that. Yeah, I'm seeing it now. 6th chapter. Yeah, I never noticed that. 7th offensive.
Huh. Okay.
That's funny. Great details and symbol of 8 for their 8th album.
Yes, exactly.
I never noticed that. So okay. All right. So I'm ready for some controversy here because I think Wilson's I think he has an unfavorable opinion of the Fourth Crusade. So what's your ranking? Number one. Oh, okay. All right. So you and I were on the same page.
Well, number 2.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty much on the same page, but
but not on the same page, but not.
Again, with rankings, the difference between number 1 and number 2 could be this much or this much.
Yeah, exactly.
People assume that it's an equal spacing. That's not necessarily. So like there's like this much space between my number 7 and my number 8, and this much space between my, some of them. So they're not equally spaced.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So Fourth Crusade, my number 1, Wilson's number 1, and Tom's number 2. All right. Moving on. Where are we at here? We are For Victory. It's the 5th album. It was recorded at Sawmill Studios in 1994 by, again, Colin Richardson and Bolt Thrower. A limited edition contains a live CD titled Live War. The song For Victory contains a quote from Lawrence Bignon, poem known as Ode of Remembrance. This would be the last release with Andrew Whale on drums. And then the Japanese edition had the 2 extra songs, World Eater 94 remix and then Overlord. For Victory. This one, what I have here, let me Let me bring myself up here. Okay. I have just a standard. When is this? This is the face of the CD. I don't think that this is an OG. I think it's.
Well, mine is. I bought this like 2 weeks after it came out or something. So this is what the OG looks like. Oh, the case is falling apart though. The actual Jill case, but it has this, and then.
Oh, okay. It has the star. Or no. Is this what the face of yours looks like?
Yeah, but it has the clear spindle thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, mine's not clear. It's the. And then it doesn't have, one thing I always look for is that mine does not have any interwebs info on it. So there's no like .coms or anything like that on it.
Yeah, mine just has the mail for info and merchandise.
Yeah.
In Warwickshire.
All right. So now with For Victory. I really like For Victory a lot. The first half. The first half is blistering, and the sound of the album has, to me, listening to it, more dynamic range. I think the sound quality overall, it's a better sounding album compared to, especially coming off of Fourth Crusade, which I think was the most compressed sounding album. I think that For Victory sounds great. And then what I also have here, again, this is another FDR pressing. Same thing. Sounds really good. This is a 2017 FDR press. I absolutely love the first half of this album. War, Remembrance, When Glory Beckons, For Victory. I mean, those songs just flow right into each other. And then the album slows down a little bit, but then it picks right back up to Forever Fallen is actually a song that, preparing for this deep dive, Forever Fallen is a song that's really grown on me. Same with Tank. Song number 9 is like a really good song. I think for Victory, it's another one of those ones where it's a challenge to fit it into a ranking, because it's just so good from start to finish. I mean, the formula that Gavin and the guys writing the songs, the formula that they figured out for their albums, it's the chef's kiss to them. Seriously, it's just such a good sound. For Victory, again, the first half of the album just really sticks with me a lot. I really like it. And then it just picks up right again. Song number 8 and 9, really good. I always liked how in the beginning of the song, when it really starts to get really fast, it gets really fast, like faster than what might have been fast on the previous album. Yeah, I think it's an incredible album. Where I'm gonna put it in my ranking, gosh, I'm gonna give this. This is gonna be number 5 for me. It's 5, and I hesitate to make it a number 5, but I don't have any other choice. My hands are tied behind my back. It's You know, it's like trying to choose, like, if I had two children and I had to throw one off of a cliff, which one would it be? You know, which child do you love more?
The uglier one. It's simple.
Oh God, no!
Right. Well. That's one thing too about this album. The cover is a photograph, and I couldn't find any photo credits. I
think it's from the Falklands War.
Yeah.
I don't see any credits either.
Yeah, I don't see any credits for this, for the album cover. Not even in the liner notes. There's nothing is mentioned of what it's from.
Well, if it's earache, they probably just stole it.
Probably, yeah. I wouldn't doubt that at all. And that's one thing too on the back of it. That's kind of a little disheartening, as it says the copyright in this song recording and artwork is owned by Earache Records. Earache, like it lists Earache Records like 4 times in the copyright notice on the back. But I mean, I'll probably be served a cease and desist after this deep dive.
Watch out, Digby might come after you.
Probably. So yeah, it's I hate having it on the later half of my ranking, but it's just how it fell into the pile. It really is. All right, Tom.
Well, I showed this on another video I did, but again, this is the CD I got when it came out. You see there's a chunk missing.
Oh no, yeah.
Ouch.
And then like, look, you can tell how scratched it is.
Yeah. Ooh. Was it like in your car for a long time?
Yeah. Or? Yeah, I was bad with like CDs in my car. You see it's the chunk and the crack.
Mm-hmm.
But it does not skip. It still plays perfectly. So this is a tank, and they have a song about a tank. It's fitting.
Yeah.
So
it survived those hot summer days in your car, CD player and everything.
And dropping it and whatever, fumbling for it. Yeah. So I think that album's amazing. Marty always calls this a perfect riff album, and I agree. My only knock against it is I find the first riff in Tank Mark 1 a little annoying for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I agree with it being a perfect riff album. I just love the flow, what you touched upon it, especially from War through Fort Victory. And just generally the entire album, to me, there's not really a wasted moment. It's really tight and flows really well. And I think the title track to me should be like a heavy metal anthem. That's one of their best songs to me. And then I absolutely adore the main riff in Lest We Forget. So that's another favorite song.
Yeah.
Armageddon Bound is such a great, again, starting with Remembrance and closing with Armageddon Bound is such a great, opener and closer. I love also Silent Demise, which kind of reminds me of Celestial Sanctuary from the previous album, where it's kind of a doomier, more atmospheric song where they're talking about death specifically. And I think the production is perfect. And it's my number one. It's always been my number one. Like I said, the first Both Thrower album I ever got. It flows so well. From beginning to end, and there's just not a wasted moment on it. So that's pretty much. I don't know what else to say. It's my number one.
Yeah, so this is your number one.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's and I mean, with me making it a 5, I was thinking that maybe it was a number one for a while. And that's just kind of how their catalog works.
Well, at least you didn't do the rank 5 albums tied for number one.
Yeah.
You know, that would have been a cop out. But again, it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't really matter. Like my top 7 are all great albums. You know, I could have ranked my number 7, my number 1, probably. You know.
Yeah. Same. All right, Wilson, you're up.
Okay, so for victory, yes. I only have the full diamond range pressing. I have it on plain old black vinyl. And this also is the original FDR release on LP. So this one was actually cut by Noel Somerville. So this is actually a lacquer cut. So it actually has some really cool messages. No guts, no glory on side A. Side B, the message says, battleships go down with their guns still firing. So these are actually pretty cool little Matrix runout information messages on it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the dynamic range on this one is a major improvement over the CD digital release. Easily.
Yeah.
Because it was fairly compressed. It was pre-compressed when it came out, but that was generally the byproduct of like their mid 90s, because I think it came out in 1994 if I remember right.
Yeah.
So that's where things started to get a little things started to get more compressed sounding with the dynamic range. So this one sounds almost like it sounds radically different.
Mm-hmm.
When I compared it to the CD digital version. I don't have the CD of this one, but yeah, it sounds really good. Yeah. Definitely the one that I would probably much, in my opinion, is probably much the definitive version of it, easily.
So your vinyl pressing, which one is it? Is that a first press? I'm sorry, I forgot.
This is a full time. This is the FDR release.
FDR. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
But this is the initial release. Let me see where it's cut. I believe this was cut. Okay, I think this was cut at Optimal Media. Yeah, Optimal Media in Germany.
Okay.
So, what can I say about production? It sounds much bigger. It's much more bombastic sounding. So it sounds really, really heavy.
Yeah.
So, and it has a bigger sound, which is kind of like the byproduct of like the 90s. That's where you're starting to see things where it kind of follows that trend in some aspect, despite the fact it was also produced by Colin Richardson at the Sawmill, with the band in there, of course. And the lyrics, again, still going with the whole war thing, which is pretty much par for the course. And yeah, and I actually like the imagery for victory. For when they showed the British Royal Marines during the sundown, when they were liberating the Falkland Islands from the Argentinian forces that came after to forcibly take over the islands, due to the fact that the Argentinian government was run by a military junta. So.
Okay, so you know a lot more about the cover image than I do.
I'm pretty sure
what's this from?
I'm 90% is the British Royal Marines. It's not the SAS, because the SAS they're these very secretive special forces. So they don't want their photos being published, of course, for security reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite songs in this one would easily be Remembrance, When Glory Beckons, For Victory, and Armageddon Bound, the last track for Victory.
Okay, so how about your ranking?
I'll rank this as number 3.
Number 3, all right. Yeah, Number 3. It's a good one. Yeah. Again, this is a great album. It really is. Yeah, and I mean, again, start to finish, it's solid. There's not a dull moment. The thing too with this one, there was a double CD version that had Live War. Have you ever heard
Yes.
the Live War bootleg?
Well, the live bootleg, if I remember, it's not really a bootleg. It's actually an
No.
official live recording.
Right.
They recorded on the 8-track tape. So, according to the interview with Joe Bench, she mentioned that they recorded one time during one of their shows, and they kind of kept it for themselves to say, you may never know, maybe it'll come out in some capacity. And then E-Rated Records is like asking them, it's like, hey, do you have any extra tracks that we could use? Well, we don't have just 1 or 2 live tracks. We have the full album. We have the full recording in front of an audience of 150 people.
Yeah.
So that's how they decided to release it as a double CD.
That's one thing that I think is unique about the Bolt Thrower catalog is that I think there's less material than there is too much material. It's kind of like live songs. Yeah, there's the live song on the Who Dares Wins comp, but for just like they didn't really do B-sides and remixes a whole lot or anything like that. The catalog, it's pretty slim. It's pretty easy to try to get everything that they've released because I think maybe they just had pretty tight quality control on what's released and what fits their brand. Yeah. All right. So 4 victories, number 3 for you. Okay. Moving on to where are we at here? Mercenary.
I gotta use the washroom. I'll be right back.
Okay. It's the 6th album that they put out. It was recorded at Chapel Studios in Lincoln, England, December of 97 to January of 98. It was produced by Bolt Thrower and Ewan Davis. It was the first album released on Metal Blade in 1998. The cover painting is titled Contact Wait Out, which is also the first track on the next album, Honor-Valor-Pride. Powder Burns is a continuation of the song Embers from the Fourth Crusade and leads into the kill chain on Those Once Loyal. This is the only album to feature Alex Thomas on drums. Mercenary, it was always the Bolt Thrower album that I paid. Okay, let's see here. Trying to figure this all out here. So you have yeah. Let me. So I have. This is what my CD looks like. Is that what you have? Okay. So ours are probably the same because this is going to Metal Blade. So this would be a late 90s pressing. And then I also have this right here, and it's a gatefold. Metal Blade definitely stepped up the performance. I'm sorry, the packaging with the releases. Everything was a gatefold that came out on Metal Blade. The liner notes, again, nice packaging. I think this is a book, or no, I'm sorry, this is a poster. They included everything with a poster. Also, interesting fact is all of the Metal Blade presses were pressed at Palace, which is one of the finest pressing plants in the world. I mean, there are premium audiophile pressings that are highly sought after for like Fleetwood Mac and stuff, and everybody wants to be like, okay, you want the Palace pressing for this. And Mercenary is an album that during all of this rediscovery of Bolt Thrower, preparing for this, Mercenary was the most pleasant rediscovery that I had, because it was always the album that I kind of thought the least about when it comes to their catalog. But after listening to it again over and over and over, I realized, again, very solid album from start to finish. It really is. Laid to Waste, Return to Chaos, Mercenary. I mean, and then you hear too where Powder Burns, where Embers kind of leads into Powder Burns from from the Fourth Crusade. That's when I really connected, those two songs together.
Interestingly, they didn't do that in For Victory. Like, they went from Realm of Chaos to War Master to Fourth Crusade and then to Mercenary, but they skipped over For Victory. Is that right? In terms of segueing into each other?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Which is weird because I mean, again, and this is kind of my flaw as a music fan, is that I just really don't read lyrics, or when I do read lyrics, I just don't put a whole lot of thought into them. Like I don't connect the dots with lyrics. I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, sounds good, But to me, the songs that are connected, it's just really the intro and the outros that I recognized. And like when I hear the intro to Powder Burns, I connect that to the outro from Embers from Fourth Crusade. Mercenary is a great album. It really is. I think it just kind of just, with me, it was just a bit on the back burner, and it's sort of, because with the Bolt Thrower albums, we're just beat over the head with Realm of Chaos and War Master so much, where it's like something like Mercenary, where it kind of just seems like it's forgotten about, but it's a great album. It really is. I don't have Infiltrator on my version. It looks like that's from like a Japanese import. I might need to pick that up at some point. I'm going to put Mercenary at, it's number 6 for me. And I'm reluctant to make it a number 6, but it's just, I don't have any other choice. it's that's just where I'm at right now with that. It's tough, but yeah, it's a great album. It really is. All right, Tom, how about you?
Yeah, so they have a new drummer or different drummer on this. So Andy Well had left the band, and I think Carl had left the band, but then came back to do this album, or was only came back for the album. I don't remember what the deal was exactly.
Well, I know from the information that I digged around based on that, I think what happened was Carl was going to university at Birmingham University to study cultural studies. So he's been kind of going on and off since 1994 and going to university over there. So during the live shows, they first hired Martin Van Drunen.
Yeah.
For some of the shows until 1997, I would say. I'm just trying to find the details. I don't remember if I wrote it. I believe it was 1997. And then they had brought in Dave Ingram eventually into the band themselves. So I think that's what exactly happened during this whole time. So things were kind of in flux with Mercenary, and the fact is they got out of Earache, they joined with Metal Blade Records.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so for this one at the time, so I was now a big Bolt Thrower fan. I love them, and this was the new album. But all the things I had read, especially online, were pretty negative. Like the new album is a huge letdown. It sucks. And for whatever reason, like I was more heavily, I guess because I couldn't hear them, the albums at the time, but I was kind of, if I read in a magazine or online the new, even if I love the band, the new album sucked, I didn't pick it up, or this album, and I eventually got it in the cutout bin of
Mm-hmm.
at Rolling Stones Records in Chicago, and I think this is kind of the underrated album, just based on the negative stuff at the time,
Right.
when it came out. I think maybe in retrospect, people don't look at it that way. Like this is, but I just remember like people saying it sucked, when this came out, like bad reviews. Yeah, so I think it picks up where For Victory left off, basically, but there's a more mid-tempo groove to this album, and I think it works really well. I guess my two favorite songs are the first two, Zeroed and Laid to Waste. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
right off the bat, those two songs, it's just great riff after great riff. So
Yeah.
it's not as much speedy, or not speedy, but faster death metal. Again, more mid-tempo, but just like amazing riffs. And then Mercenary is sort of the For Victory of this album, and I love how it builds towards the end of that song. And No Guts, No Glory is a classic, and I haven't heard Infiltrator. Mine just has nine tracks on it.
Yeah.
I will say, I mean, the production is good. I would say it's a little worse than For Victory. And I guess the knock on this album is the drums. The drummer's perfectly competent, but it's more standard death metal type drumming.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have the character that Andy Whale had. So that's kind of a big loss from For Victory.
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of the big knock on the album. And also just because it's falling For Victory, which is my number one, and it's not as good, but I still think it's a really good album. And I have it as my number 6.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
Again, I think it's really good. I would just say that I like maybe the first half better, with Zero, Late to Waste, and Mercenary are probably my 3 favorite songs.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's definitely, if you skipped over this one, this is definitely one to check out.
Yeah. This is the one that I rediscovered the most, because I paid the least amount of attention to it way back when. So yeah. All right. Cool. Wilson.
Okay, so unfortunately, I don't have a copy of Mercenary in my collection. These are the 2 Bolt Thrower albums that I don't have a physical copy of. So, yeah. So as I mentioned earlier before, Mercenary was actually my first Bolt Thrower album that I discovered online.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the albums I had. I'm glad for Mercenary that came out for me to discover Bolt Thrower, and I did enjoy Late to Ways and Zeroed, but not only is the album I listened to it the least, but it's also the production. I did not like this one very much. I found it just way too bassy for my liking, and I also don't. I just find most of the music it didn't gel. It didn't mesh well with me.
Okay.
Because I find the pace of the sound is just too slow for me. It was slow to mid pace for me. It kind of lost. Well, trying to re-listen to Mercenary, they pretty much lost me after Late to Ways and Zero. So I didn't find that album all that interesting in hindsight. So this is one of the least attention grabbing album, but at least it has Carl Willits,
Right.
and the artwork is also pretty cool. Although this artwork, I was reading some details. It was actually a cover painting by Peter Archer titled "Contact Wait Out."
Right.
If you look at the original painting and you compare it to the album cover, there's quite a few differences between the two. It looks to me that somebody copied the painting from Peter Archer, and then they made a whole bunch of changes to it. So, for example, you see the guy who is like crouching down, just observing the what the enemies are doing, and one of the backpacks he had like sitting inside, he had like a Sterling submachine gun, and what he's observing is a bunch of artillery pieces and soldiers that are kind of go along trying to set up their artillery positions for them to bombard the enemies. Yeah, that's the one right there. Yeah, that's the Sterling submachine gun that he put aside here. And if you look at the original painting by Peter Archer, yeah, the guy was actually observing over the a much desolate area.
Right.
And in the background, you see a bunch of helicopters, like the Chinook, the CH-47 Chinook transport helicopters, and other helicopters I can't identify because it's too far away for me to see the details. So there's that. And the fact is, the Contact Wait Out is actually flipped. So he's actually looking at on the left-hand side. The guy was on the left-hand side versus this one was on the right-hand side.
Okay.
So this is kind of interesting details I've noticed with that. But I think the artwork was kind of based on the Guns of Navarone book and television, not television show, sorry.
The movie?
The movie, yes. I think that's kind of heavily based upon that.
Okay.
If I remember, if memory serves me right. So for my ranking of Mercenary, I had to give this a 7 for this one.
A 7? All right.
7.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? I didn't do any research to see what the original artwork looked like. I probably should have. But yeah. There are some things that look, just from looking at it, just at first glance, it seems like there are some edits made to it. Just maybe just kind of retouching where the contrast doesn't match.
It's interesting how wildly different our statements were about the album, but then we had it. Chris and I had a rank 6, and Wilson had a rank 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see certain people thinking they were going for more of a Pantera groove on this album and not liking this and the next 2 albums because of that. But I think it works.
It does work. Yeah. And you know, the thing too is that kind of just overall Bolt Thrower never sold out. They never gave into a sound. Like, because exactly, you're right. Like, you know, this came out in what, like 98. I mean, that was right there, right around the time when I think Far Beyond Driven, I think was released sometime around then.
I think that was 94, but like, well,
Oh,
like
yeah,
they were
yeah.
talking about the Slayer Diabolus
Yeah.
Musica, which I think was 98, and that was clearly they were changing their sound to fit with the time. And I don't get that vibe from Mercenary. It's sort of simpler riffs and more mid-tempo.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it's just sort of where their sound was evolving to.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like a sellout thing.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely not a sellout thing. And Ron is in the chat and he loves Mercenary. So I you know, that's the thing with Bolt Thrower. We could have an album that we rank number 6 and 7 in our ranking, and then someone comes in and be like, no, I love that one. That one's great. Which it is. Again, it's a solid album. He likes the slowed down approach to the songs. Yeah. Mercenary had a doomier approach like the Fourth Crusade. Yeah, you know, Mercenary, and you know what the thing is when I was revisiting everything, preparing for this, I wanted to kind of be like the contrarian. Like I wanted to be the sort of the odd man out who was like, Mercenary's my number one. Yeah, you know, like I wanted to kind of just be like that soapbox type of guy, like the contrarian who's just, you know, just says the opposite of what everyone else is expecting. I gained a lot of respect for this album and I really enjoyed listening to it a lot. And it was the most pleasant discovery I made from revisiting everything. But unfortunately, it's still, for me, it's still a number 6 to me, just because everything before it is just so great. It really is. All right. Where are we at here? Okay, so now the next one we're coming up to. Yep. This is this is sort of a change in Honor-Valor-Pride. It's the 7th album by Bolt Thrower. It was recorded and mixed at Sable Rose Studios in Coventry, June to September of 2011. It was produced by the band and Andy Faulkner and was released on Metal Blade in 2001. Honor-Valor-Pride is the only full-length Bolt Thrower album not featuring Carl and the first with Martin Kearns on drums. Honor-Valor-Pride. It's an album. Well, first of all, I like how it's a 45 RPM pressing that they released. I like that a lot. I just wish that this was common with all of their releases to be a 45 RPM. Honor-Valor-Pride, not having Carl doing vocals really changes the sound. It's Dave Ingram on vocals. And don't get me wrong, I've always really liked Benediction a lot. But we're talking about Bolt Thrower, not Benediction. And yeah.
Oh, look at the cat.
Say something.
Hello, cat.
Yeah, look at that. What's his name?
This is Midnight.
Midnight. Oh man.
Hello, Midnight.
Apparently Midnight's not naughty like my cat is, who just causes trouble all the time. Honor-Valor-Pride is a number 8 for me. It's a much slower album. There are moments when it does pick up, but for the most part, it's more mid-tempo, sort of a death doom type of sound to it. It's just it has a different sound to it. To me, it at times it doesn't really feel like a Bolt Thrower album. And yeah, it's the least listened to Bolt out of my Bolt Thrower collection. I don't know what the reason is for why. I know that when they were on tour, Martin Van Druen was the one who did vocals for them when they were on tour, but Dave Ingram did the studio sessions. Yeah, I just there aren't any songs on this album that really stick out to me. I mean, I've always leaned towards the faster Bolt Thrower sound, so when you get to like Honor and Suspect Hostile and I think K Machine and Hollow Truce is when it picks up, but for the most part it's I would say probably their slowest album of just more mid-tempo death doom type of sound. But yeah, it's just a solid number 8 for me. It is what it is.
Yeah. So when people say that Bolt Thrower has a bulletproof catalog, I would say this is their not good album, and I wouldn't say it's bad, but
yeah,
to me it's just really mediocre. I think Dave Ingram is a problem on this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he's trying to do a Carl impersonation, and it just feels very awkward to me.
Right.
I think if he done more of his normal vocal, that would have been worked better, but he might not have had that choice. Yeah, and the material just feels like like Mercenary but inferior. Like this was all the stuff that wasn't good enough to be on Mercenary, like the riffs. And there are some good riffs throughout this. That's, I guess, the big, in that kind of Mercenary style, there are some good riffs throughout the album. But but it just feels like B material.
Yeah.
And I can't really get over the vocals, So yeah, it's easily my number 8, and I think it's worth checking out. I think it's okay. I guess Valor is probably my favorite song. The second half of Contact Wait Out has some good riffs. Yeah, that's about it. So.
Yeah, I don't know what the backstory is for why Carl wasn't doing vocals on this album. Maybe he just needed time off from the band, or he was dealing with personal things. Who knows? But yeah, Dave Ingram, it just doesn't work. With him on vocals. But yeah, and you're right too. A lot of it just feels like maybe it's Mercenary, leftovers.
Not that I'm proposing that it was, but that's what it feels like in terms of it's Mercenary style, but all inferior songs, inferior riffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, Wilson.
Okay, so yeah, I had to agree with you guys regarding to the Honor-Valor-Pride. Even though despite the fact this is my first Bolt Thrower album I ever purchased, and the fact I actually bought it when it came out, brand new. I think actually maybe 2 or 3 months I think it's after it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I listened to this. Even back then, I was pretty much let down by it. I find this one. Not only they had Dave Ingram from Benediction on vocals, without Carl Willis, unfortunately, but the pace of this album is just. I just find it rather dull.
Yeah.
I find this pretty forgettable. I mean, it sounds like to me the band was pretty tired. I mean, they're at the. I mean, if you think about it, during that time of like death metal, they're kind of diverging in different ways. So you got the one they're going toward the technical, crazy death metal sound like from Nile to Necrophagist, to like the old school, but they're kind of dead. They're pretty much dead in the water.
That was a difficult time for death metal. Really,
Exactly.
like the early 2000s. Yeah.
So, yeah. But the production is slightly better than Mercenary, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like it a little bit more, and the artwork I absolutely love. I love the artwork in this one.
The artwork is good. Yeah,
it's really cool. I mean, it was done by Jan Menninghaus. I think that's the person's name. Who would later do a whole bunch of artwork for later Creator albums. So he did some pretty decent artwork for this one, for other albums. But there's only several tracks that I kind of like Contact, Wait Out, Valor, and K Machine.
Mm-hmm.
But what I noticed when I re-listened to it the other day, during the song Inside the Wire, there's been some weird audio glitches that happened during some parts of the song.
Really?
Yes.
Like what?
I hear some crackling noise between 255 to 305 of the track. So there's like this little crackling. It sounds like there might be some sort of tape issue, I think. They're probably using DATs, and the DAT, which is digital audio tapes, they're known to be very flaky.
Yeah.
And they tend to get pretty glitchy with that. I think that's probably what it is from what I hear when I listen to this song. Yeah, so yeah. Overall, Honor-Valor-Pride, I had to give this a number 8.
Yeah.
For this one.
Yeah, that's pretty much where it falls. That's everyone's number 8.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and listen to it for like those, like, the tape glitches. I didn't notice that, but also, was it the type of thing too where it's like on headphones you picked it up, or?
Yeah, I heard it even from my speakers, but you can hear it more clearly if you have headphones on.
Yeah. Now, so Ron's saying he'll openly admit that he's a Bolt Thrower fanboy. Pretty much dig anything they do. Yeah, clearly Ron is tuning into the live stream late, because what all of us were saying in the beginning of it is it's so difficult to rank the albums, because there are 6 of them that could may easily be a number 2, and then out of that there are a few that could easily be a number 1. I mean, the whole collection, it's just so solid from start to finish that really this one album, Honor-Valor-Pride, is just sort of the weakest link out of the bunch. I think just a lot of it for me might just has to do with the change in vocalist. Because I mean, Carl is just a really unique vocalist. I think his sound, it's just really unique to Bolt Thrower, and then having Dave Ingram, it just sort of just to me it just doesn't really feel like a Bolt Thrower album. I mean, to feel like a Bolt Thrower album is a really high standard, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, so the reason why Carl Willis wasn't in that album is the fact that I think at that time he graduated from Birmingham University. He got married. I believe he got married at some point. So he was kind of doing the adult stuff, like finding jobs, like doing various jobs. I think I read somewhere that he was selling insurance plans to people.
What? Oh man. Well, I guess when earache screws you over, you need to sell insurance on the side or something.
Pretty much. It's so he was doing a whole bunch of side jobs for quite a while, just doing this, doing that. So he was doing the adult stuff while the other band members are doing other music stuff.
I knew like this guy who lived next door to my parents was an insurance salesman, and he was just a miserable person. Like I can't imagine like giving up playing in a sick band just to sell insurance. It just doesn't sound right. Like, I mean, I'm sure that Bolt Thrower by this point were at least making enough to pay the bills.
You figured, but I don't know. I don't know their financial statements, so I can't read into that.
It depends on their contract.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
Yeah,
and then there's also that weird situation too of Gavin and Joe Bench being in a relationship. Like I think they were married. I kind of wonder if like maybe they were the core of Bolt Thrower, like being in a relationship or being in a band, but then with a couple in the band who's married. There had to have been a lot of just like married couple drama that was brought into it, of like they're fighting because they need to go and visit her mother and he doesn't want to go, and now the guys in the band are pulled into it or something. I'm sure there was some of that.
It's too bad we never got like whatever their equivalent of Fleetwood Mac rumors was. Or like
right
sniping, like one of the band members was flirting with Joe one day, and one of the, there's a song about a stealth bomber, but it's code for stop looking at Joe.
Right. Oh my god. Or just like them fighting because like Joe is mad at Gavin because he didn't take the trash out last night. Now it smells. I'm sure there was that type of relationship drama that made its way into the Bolt Thrower recording sessions, and they were just like, maybe that's why Carl was off of this record. He's like, I've had enough of these two. I need a break from this. I'm tired of just being the third wheel here or something. But
yeah, well, I guess if one of us were to talk to Carl Willis at some point, I think to do like an interview, but I think he's more of an introvert than anything, really.
Yeah.
With Carl Willis, he doesn't do very many interviews, from what I can tell.
I like his new band Memoriam. I like their stuff that they've put out, and I forgot to mention that in my honorable mentions thing that we started off with. But I think the first couple, I think the Memoriam stuff is good. I mean, it's slower, but it still has that Bolt Thrower type of feel to it. Especially the first album. I really like it a lot. So
yeah,
but I've never heard it.
It's good. It's good stuff. It really is. It's two of the dudes from Sacrilege and Benediction are also in the band, so it's a good listen, definitely.
Yeah, I like Requiem for the Mankind. That's probably my favorite from Memoriam.
Yeah, that's a good one. I have those. Where? Oh, okay. So yeah, they're right here. For the Fallen is really good. And then The Silent Vigil is a good one. And then Requiem for Mankind. It's a really good one. There are two others that came out after this that I don't own yet, but I'm gonna pick those up. All right. We are on. Okay, so Ron, you're very late. Ron, I'm disappointed in you. Very upset. He has 2 of the Memoriam records. They're quite good. Yeah, they are. They are good. And you know what? I have a CD coming in the mail that's of the Memoriam demos that they released before the first album. So, what label was it that put it? Cosmic Creations put that out on CD. So I should get that in the mail any day now. All right. We are up to the last of the Bolt Thrower albums, and this is Those Once Loyal. Now, Those Once Loyal, it's the 8th and final album by Bolt Thrower. It was released on November 11th, 2005 in Germany, November 14th, 2005 in the rest of Europe, and November 15th, 2005 in the United States by Metal Blade Records. It was recorded and mixed at Sable Rose Studios in Coventry. It is produced by the band and Andy Faulkner. With Bolt Thrower deciding against releasing a follow-up to Those Once Loyal, it was Bolt Thrower's final studio album before breaking up a year after drummer Martin Kern's death in September 2015. Like all Bolt Thrower albums, Those Once Loyal deals with war, specifically World War I. The cover shows a World War I QF 18-pounder field gun and its crew in action, and is based on an original World War I photograph. The picture is also found on the backside of the Guards Memorial in St. James Park in London. Reception. Ian Finley praised the album in Terrorizer as immune to corrupting influence of all musical trends while offering the epitome of what a metal album should be: hard, fast, and uncompromising.
Epitome? Is that how you pronounce it?
Epitome.
I'm sorry. Epitome. All right. I'm a child of divorce. All right. So just I'm bound to be flawed. Those Once Loyal. This is how. Talk about going out with a bang. Those Once Loyal, this is, OG CD. And then also, again, the Metal Blade, OG press. Pressed at Palace Pressing. 180 gram black vinyl. And then it came with like a huge poster. This album is incredible. It really is. I mean, it's kind of like being a quarterback who announces that you're retiring and then you win the Super Bowl. This album from start to finish, I mean, really the first 3 songs, At First Light, Entrenched, and The Kill Chain. I mean, those songs just are bangers from start to finish, and they just flow right into each other. The album slows down. It gets a little more groove to it with Granite Wall, Those Once Loyal. When I was going back and listening to all of this stuff again, I was really impressed with the songs Last Stand of Humanity and Salvo. The harmonizing, especially in Salvo, I was really impressed with that. I think that had a really great sound. Yeah, this is a really great album. It really is. If anything, the first 3 songs just absolutely awesome from start to finish. This is my number 2. I really, yeah. This is my number 2. It's a great album. It really is. It's kind of like with the artwork too, with the sepia tone album cover. Kind of really, I think to me, it kind of has like this fade to black type of feel to it, where this is it. This is our last album. We're not releasing anything after this. But yeah, great album. I absolutely love it. It's a very solid number 2 for me. Tom?
Yeah, so this is my number 3. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. To me, this is like if you took For Victory and gave it a much more kind of sharp groove to everything, and it's not as much as kind of the faster death metal. And also in terms of it being very economical, like there's 9 songs. There's a bonus track on some issues, but reissues. But just a very tight 9 songs. And also, and fitting with this kind of this approach, the Joe, this is like the highest in the mix that Joe has been. Like she's really prominent in this album. And I agree just in terms of it starting off, like those first 3 songs are great. I would say Entrenched and Those Once Loyal are my favorite songs. And then The Kill Chain and Anti-Tank Dead Armor is awesome with that bass line and just that main riff.
Right.
And I love that on For Victory they have a song called Tank. On this album they have a song called Anti-Tank. Like this is, it's like the, the both sides of the war they're covering. The fair and balanced approach to war coverage. We actually get it here with Bolt Thrower. And then when I talked about War Master Afterlife, how the riff kind of builds out to close the album, they do a similar thing here with When Cannons Fade, which is really awesome. So yeah, to me, it still feels like a kind of companion album to For Victory in a way for me. And it's my number 3. And also the drumming, Kearns' drumming, I think is better on this album than the previous album. And he doesn't try to do an Andy Well impersonation. It's its own thing, but I think it fits this record really well, his drumming, even though it's quite different from Andy Well. And that's it. Number 3.
Okay. All right. So Tom, that's your number 3. Wilson.
Okay, so Those Once Loyal. So.
Ooh, man, dude. Sheesh. Yeah.
Well, I like the fact that Carl Willis is back. He sounds really good vocally in this album. And based upon my opinion from Mercenary to Honor-Valor-Pride, I find that Those Once Loyal took some of the better elements of these 2 set albums, and then they kind of took some of the faster paced sound that you find in other albums like For Victory and even the Fourth Crusade. So they kind of made it so it's almost like a return to their old form in some sense. Yeah. So you still get some of the dynamic pacing of the music overall. So you get the faster part, you get the slower, more doomier, more dread into their sound of the music, given the fact that lyrically it's all about war, of course. So
right.
So it kind of works in that respect. So there's some really decent songs like At First Light, Entrenched, Those Once Loyal, and the final track, When Cannons Fade, which would ultimately be the last Bolt Thrower song. Well, actually, if you include A Symbol of 8, yeah, I guess A Symbol of 8 would probably be the very last song of their discography. And yeah, so I find Those Once Loyal came out better versus the 2 aforementioned albums. So overall, I would give this an album a 6.
Wow.
A ranking of a 6.
Wilson, man, there's going to be some controversy tomorrow around the VC.
Well,
Yeah, those once loyal a 6. Man.
I had Realm of Chaos at 7. Why isn't that controversy?
Well, yeah, true. Ooh,
yeah,
man.
that's true.
The paparazzi, they're gonna be
They're coming after you, Tom. They got. For all we know,
VC.
they probably have a main battle tank coming right around the corner.
That's true. Someone's gonna send a tank. Someone's gonna hijack a tank, come after you.
Oh man, a number 6 for that. Wow, that is crazy. I mean, there is time. This isn't, there is time to change your mind if you wanted to make some edits, to your ranking. It doesn't need to be public knowledge. We can kind of just talk behind the scenes. Just let me know. But
if you were gonna murder someone that you thought was an inadequate bolt thrower fan, stealing a tank and then blowing up their house would be the way to do it.
Yeah, I'm sure someone will do it, but I'm pretty sure it's I don't know, it's probably getting sanctioned, and then probably that tank will come after me. I'm pretty sure. Probably the spirit of Martin Kearns is my guess.
Right. All right. Yeah, it's. I think that this is just a solid album. Like, for them to just go out with a bang like this of, we're not putting out any more albums, we're done, Bolt Thrower's over with. I think this is the perfect album to end their legacy on. It's solid. It is from start to finish. All right. Cool. Yeah. So we got all of those. The Bolt Thrower deep dive. It's done and in the books. Is there anything that that you guys anything that you guys are just like, fuck yeah, dude? It's, I don't know. I think it's I'd imagine that probably, because you also don't know about, we've never heard about anybody else from Bolt Thrower having another band, or they're playing in another band, or doing anything like they pretty much all seem very siloed off into, we're Bolt Thrower and this is who we are. Yes, Carl has his new band, after Bolt Thrower broke up. He has Memoriam going on, and that's going well. But you don't hear about anyone else playing in anything. I'd imagine that they're all probably just, by this point they probably made a good amount of money from Bolt Thrower. I'd imagine. I would hope so, because they deserve it. And they're probably all living comfortably off of it, and they're just like, hey, I just want to tend to my vegetable garden or something like that. I don't want to be out touring all the time and doing all of that. But I think that their legacy, it's pretty impressive. When you think about their catalog, and just everything was really solid for the most part. I think that, for this era, I think they probably have one of the most impressive catalogs of any band from, like, the 80s, 90s death metal. I think it's all pretty awesome. Not many bands can say that. There are a lot of duds in there for many bands,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of the best riffs in metal history.
Yeah.
Simple riffs, doomy riffs, fast riffs,
Mm-hmm.
complicated riffs.
And
there's this like a signature kind of what I equate with like a Bolt Thrower riff, like Ritual and What Dwells Within.
Mm-hmm.
Certain riffs, like, okay, that's a Bolt Thrower riff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And then there's that riffing, but also with like the drumming too, that we all know, like that really charging, just like, the double bass pedal with the riffs, and the harmonizing. between the two guitarists. Again, I'm not a musician, so I really can't explain exactly what it is that they're doing, but we all know that bolt thrower sound when you hear it.
Yeah, So, yeah, bolt thrower. Yeah, they had, at the very least, the early stuff is very, very solid. It's no wonder so many people look up to the Earache era bolt thrower albums a lot.
Yeah.
So at the very least, it's like people love this stuff. It's like it's Warhammer and metal. It's like it's almost like it's a perfect marriage. You know?
Yeah. 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 Anyways. All right. Well, I think this was a great deep dive. I think we covered a lot of territory. Yeah. They're an awesome band. Is there any closing statements you guys have, or anything coming up on your channels or your socials that you want to get out there?
Well, recently I've been posting a lot of photos of some of the live shows I've been to for this whole month.
Yeah, you saw Skinny Puppy.
Yes, I saw Skinny Puppy and Led Into Gold. I saw Carcass. I saw Sacred Reich, Municipal Waste, and Creeping Death. And I also saw Black Flag too. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, you've been going to a lot of shows.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to keep continuing to do so because I'm going to see Megadeth pretty soon.
Cool.
As well, so they're coming to my city.
Nice.
So I can't wait to see Megadeth.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Tom, what about you?
And it's now Sunday, but tonight, meaning Sunday night, is the deadline. I have a Doom Metal giveaway of 5 CDs. So you still have time. Anyone can you just show off 5 Doom Metal albums in a YouTube video, and you can enter the contest. So on my channel.
Yeah, I saw that, and I'm going to try to record a video tomorrow. So I have until 11:59 p.m. tomorrow. Right?
It's not that strict, but because I'll probably do. Jesus, my schedule, because now I have jury duty next week.
Oh man!
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, roughly, Sunday.
Okay.
If it's after midnight, that's fine.
Okay, I'm going to try to put together a video tomorrow. I have 5 Doom albums in mind that I'll post about. So,
Ron entered the contest. It's been really cool because everyone has gotten a different approach. So there's, do stoner, do like the history of Doom Metal, do like obscure Doom Metal recommendations, and then somebody did a funny one, and then somebody did one from a non-metal fan, but they had a couple of Doom Metal albums. It's been fun, just that the wide variety.
People getting creative with it. All right, cool, awesome. Well, I think we're gonna call it a night. Thank you guys, Wilson, Tom. Thanks for joining in, and everyone in the chat. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll all regroup again at some point soon. So have a good night, and then let's don't sign off quite yet. We'll chat in the green room. All right, thanks. Bye.